Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome back. We are back for another fun show tonight. We've got an interview with a comics creator and collector who is also attending OAX. Their name is Phil Hester. You've probably stumbled into their calf gallery. They've been a member for, I believe, 16, 17 years. It's been a long time. One of the longer tenured collectors on the site. And while they've been on the channel before, I haven't had the opportunity to do the interview with them. So this is my first opportunity to do that. So let me bring Phil in and get this thing started. Hey, Phil.
Hey, Bill. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Not too bad. I think
You've really done 312 of these?
Oh gosh, 312 of these and 250 calf updates and
Yeah.
you name it. We've done it since the pandemic when all these things started. I think we probably have about 1,200 shows under our belt in that time. I mean,
Wow.
that's a lot.
It's amazing.
It's been a lot of fun though. I mean, certainly during the pandemic, that was we needed something to do, right? I mean, I think I think we all just kind of gravitated to doing YouTube streams a lot. You look at some online selling through YouTube streams, whatnots, and all that stuff. I mean, it all really got its foothold, I think, in everybody during the pandemic. But yeah, I think we were all looking for something to do, right? And it was the right thing to do. We started the virtual cons on Comic Art Fans, and then it was like, wow, we got to fill the time in between shows. 6 months. What are you going to do? So yeah, it just kind of evolved from there. It's whatever felt like the right thing to do. So we did it. But yeah, you were. I was going to say you were part of one of the very early. I think like the first or second Comic Art Live. It was back when I think John Suntress might have. I can't remember who did the interview with you. Was it John Suntress? It might have been.
Or who?
Well, I can't. I think it must have been John Suntress or either. I mean, Mark Walters helped out every once in a while with interviews, but I know that you were on, but it was 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, when I've talked to John so often that it's a blur. You can't really differentiate when you're talking to John. And plus, I lived in John's radio market for a while, and so like I would turn on the radio and hear John too.
I didn't live in the Chicago area, right? I think that's where he was on the radio. Yeah. No, never got to hear him on the radio, but he's had his podcast for a very long time.
Yeah, and it's the best. I mean, you could tell he's got the chops from radio to be a broadcaster, and it really comes through on this pod.
Yeah, no, he was in. I don't think I could have done the shows like we did them back in the day if I didn't have John stepping in and Mark and a few other people. There was just too much work to do for those weekends. But again, back to the pandemic, we were all looking for things to do, and that's just a great opportunity to kind of figure things out and do something different with Comic Art Fans for the community. So yeah, we've evolved a lot, and you've been with us for quite some time. I saw Bill Reinhold in the chat. Bill was we did a fun interview with Bill a couple of years back.
Yeah, he's the best.
Have you guys worked before together?
We haven't worked together, but we've moved in similar circles. And it's, one of the weird things about comics is that a lot of the people that you look up to, it's sort of like rock and roll or sports. A lot of the people you look up to as the generation before you aren't really much older than you are at all. Maybe sometimes like just 3, 4, 5 years older than you are. And so Bill, when he was working on Justice Machine, when I was in high school, that was like huge influence on me, like to see that you could make comics that felt as exciting as Marvel and DC comics, but they were totally homegrown. And I was so jazzed by that. And Bill was a big part of that. And also he's just a superb draftsman. So I've been studying his work for a long time as well.
He's I grew up reading comics, and that era was always a lot of fun. Bill knows it too. Like my favorite books were Justice Machine and Elementals, right? Yeah. I mean, I wasn't as big a Turtles fan. I mean, I know that kind of came out, before that in the same kind of era, but I probably read more American Flag, than Ninja Turtles, just kind of the stories that I gravitated to in the mid to late 80s. But sure. Bill was definitely, I actually probably have like 3 or 4 pieces, and mostly, I've got 2 Justice Machine pages. So Bill's had a hand in those.
Yeah, I don't know how many Justice Machine pages I'm up to. 5 maybe. too many.
It's never too many, Phil.
Yeah, I know.
Thing,
but that's
right?
part of my. Maybe we'll talk about it tonight. That I went into this hobby thinking I want to get one good example of all these either books or artists that meant a lot to me, and then just yesterday I bought my second Tom Riley page from the Thing miniseries. I already had a really nice one. Why did I need another one? I mean, it's a gorgeous page, but yeah, that's part of the mania of this hobby.
It is. I mean, yeah. I mean, the thing is, you can never have enough. I think that we as collectors, well, I keep telling myself, I just need one good example, but there's always a better example, right? There's always an upgrade, and yeah.
And I'm willing to upgrade, but then I'm not willing to sell off the thing I upgraded from. That's the problem.
Well, we were talking before the show starts. You're like a year away from 40 years as a professional, but when did you start collecting original art?
It was a while into my time as a pro. I was probably working. Oh no, I mean, I got serious about it when I started working for DC, like in the early '90s when I started on Swamp Thing, and I started to get a regular paycheck from comics. And I started to make money at conventions instead of lose money at conventions. And it seemed like a very natural thing to take that wad of cash that I had made that weekend and Sunday afternoon start going around to the original art dealers and seeing what they had, for their wares. And it was irresistible to me at that time because I grew up as an aspiring pro in a time before the internet. And so any sort of glimpse behind the scenes to how comics were made was like very rare. And it was like a treasure to find that stuff. A lot of people in my generation will know exactly what I'm talking about. When I talk about the Batman versus Hulk Treasury edition that came out in the 80s. And it had this little sort of like the inside back cover had this little like how the cover was made. And it was like this back and forth between Jose Luis Garcia Lopez and Dick Giordano about how they crafted the cover. And you got to see all the nuts and bolts of how they made the cover. I'm not sure how much of that was, like packaged afterwards for our entertainment. But that sort of glimpse to how comics were made was so rare that I have that whole sequence sort of memorized. And so when I became a pro and had access to original art, it was like that same feeling times 10. I could see the actual pieces and I could see where people erased and I could see what got whited out and I could see dialogue pasted over. And all that stuff to me was just part of just one more notch turned up in the romance of comics. It was like I was always a comic book collector, but it was like comic book collecting plus. And it also informed me as a professional. Like I learned things from buying original art. So yeah, like when I started working as a pro full time was when I really got serious about buying original art.
Well, that's like mid 90s. I think that's when a lot of collectors that many of us envy got their start was in the early to mid 90s. And the art was there was art everywhere and it was all affordably priced. And I mean, it was just a wonderful time to be a collector. I didn't start collecting until around 98, 99, in that era. So things were still affordable, but it was different.
Right.
The internet was just getting started. Like you said, I mean, 95, 94, it's still pre, you have to get your, any art for sale that you're looking for, it's either going to be through a fax or the Comics Buyer's Guide or going to a show.
Yeah, I would say the vast majority of it I did in person and not stuff that I'd been scouting, stuff that I saw on Friday and had to decide by Sunday if I wanted to buy it. And which was fun. Now now you have to like think and strategize and budget. And then it was much more impulsive and much more like spur of the moment. But I think everybody envies the collectors that are 5 years older. I think about all the people that were buying, artwork. Like I have a friend who there's a legendary comic convention that was in Oklahoma City that John Byrne was at. I don't know if you've heard this story before.
No, go for it.
But he had a stack of X-Men pages for $50 a piece. And like, I have a friend that was a couple years older than me who was still a teenager at that time and could not afford them. But he had another friend who was a little bit older than him and had a job at the post office. So he bought an armful, and, each one of those today is worth a minimum of $50,000, and that's that guy's 10 years. Yeah. Oh yeah, sure. But that's like, that guy's 10 years older than I am. So that he was there 10 years before. There's pluses and minuses to all that. I think the people that are collecting now are spoiled in the breadth of talent we're exposed to. There's so much work being done now that is really brilliant and doesn't have to fit in a house style at Marvel or DC. There's so many great stuff happening even at Marvel and DC that would not fit into their publishing plan even 15 years ago. And it's a really great time for people that like to be on sort of the bleeding edge of what's new in comics. So every generation has something, something that makes it their golden age of collecting. And I feel really blessed to still be engaged by this hobby and still be learning a lot from it.
Well, you still seem to be pretty busy. I think, whether it's, cover gigs or some interiors, et cetera, there's always, at least when I went to comics.org, there was usually two things every month that had your name on it, right? Even through, through last month. It just seems like, you're busy.
Yeah, I am. It's all I wanted to do since I was like 12. So to get to do it at this level has been very, very exciting and very fulfilling. And I'm lucky that I have a wife with a straight job. It's sort of like, we know what she's going to make every month, and we know that's where the insurance is coming from. And then my income can look like the EKG that it does. My accountant cannot believe I live like this, because there's some years where I look like a pauper, and then other years where I look like I own a boat, and it just you never know from year to year. And it's the sort of thing that I probably should, but don't think about at all as a professional. What I'm after are gigs that are like, that look fun to me, and look like places where I can stretch my talent. And those are my motivating factors at this stage in my career.
And the good news is the work's still coming in.
Yes.
Right? I mean,
yeah. I haven't had to go looking for work for a while, which is pretty cool.
So, early on working on like Swamp Thing was the first regular, gig from DC that you had. And I think that was around 94, 93.
Yeah,
somewhere
around
in that.
mid-90s. Yeah.
So what was that like? I mean, getting something that you knew was going to be consistent and stayed kind of, consistent for a couple of years for you. I mean, that had been, because prior to that, you're doing a lot of independent publishers, Now, First Comics, those sorts of things. But what was it like working on Swamp Thing for the first time?
It was pretty incredible because I did not feel like I was ready for that assignment. And I know I talk to people every day who really love that run, and it's hard for me to, because I'm still learning a lot. But I don't want to devalue their experience as readers, and they did love it. So, but for me, sometimes it's hard to look back on. So I don't think I was ready for that gig, but it was like one of my favorite comics, and when I was a kid. So it's sort of like when I grew up in that Ween and Wrightson run, and because my uncles had, I was too young to get it when it came out, but my uncles had it, and I read theirs. I read the covers off of theirs, and that's the run I probably have the most burned into my brain. And so to get that as my first assignment was like, it was sort of like growing up the fan of the baseball team and then being chosen to play for that team, being drafted by that team. And in a way, it doesn't matter if you're like the worst center fielder to ever play for the Red Sox, you're still playing for the Red Sox.
Right, exactly.
You know? And that's sort of the feeling I had at the time when I was working on the book. I'm like, I don't know if I should be here, but I'm staying. You know. But it was a great experience, and I mean, I will get to it when we start talking about some pieces from my collection. But there's a nice little there's a little Swamp Thing note in some of that stuff that goes back to that time that was really, really amazing to connect with Bernie at that time. Mm-hmm. We were both guests at a show, and to sort of connect with him at a time when I was actually drawing Swamp Thing was kind of like a really amazing moment.
I mean, what was it like to meet somebody whom you held in high regard as both an artist and a comic book creator?
Yeah. It was, well, for one thing, I was in awe of him, you know, and stayed that way, like for the length of his life, of course. But he was such a genuine, like friendly guy that he dispelled all that sort of nervousness I had about meeting him. And then I had this double hurdle of also having to say, hey, I'm a comic book artist too. And also I'm ruining your character. You know? No, I mean, we weren't ruining him on purpose. I was just like, I can't hold a candle to what you're doing, but here I am on your baby. And he couldn't have been more gracious. He in fact, he did me a sketch that weekend, and then we wound up spending a lot of time, like even after the convention, hanging out together, because he was, you know, he's really a gracious guy, on top of being such an incredible artist.
Yeah, no, that's I actually never got the chance to talk with him. Saw him at a few shows, but you always had a long line. So you know, I always think I'll be able to see him at the next one, and then I'm missing out on the opportunity to chat with him.
I was very lucky that when I came up, there was a little comic book convention in Kansas City that was put on by a comic book club, and they was made it a point to get like a big name like Bernie, and then like a silver or golden, back when we had Golden Age guys still out there, a Golden Age artist, and then like they would like put us up and comers on sort of equal footing with those people. And it was a big enough con that it was busy and everybody made good money, but it was small enough that you could actually talk to each other. And I got to meet so many legends that way. Kurt Swan, Dan Barry, Al Feldstein, just at this convention. And they were like, in the context of being a colleague, even, you know, which was mind blowing to me, because even, you know, like 4 years before, I was still dreaming about being in comics at all. And so I had to think, it was called the MoCon, Missouri, Kansas, the MoCon Comics Conspiracy, put on by that Kansas City Comic Book Club, and for the most part run by Mike Worley, who's a really talented cartoonist himself.
Wow. Yeah, there was, that sounds like a great show.
It was. And it's sort of like, it sort of spun out of that whole scene, sort of spun up what is now Planet Comic-Con, which is one of the bigger shows in the country now.
Interesting. Well, I had to go back to that stack of John Byrne X-Men pages for $50. Sorry, it just hit me like we've been talking, and I'm enjoying it. Then I had to remind myself that.
And you know what kills me is like my dad was at that con, and he wanted to get me something from there, and he knew I liked John Byrne, and I think John was drawing Cap at the time. Mm-hmm. He was drawing Captain America, and so my dad just went and grabbed a random Captain America annual that John had not worked on, but John was nice enough to sign it. But he was still enough of like a scoundrel to write, "I did not draw this, John Byrne." So that's in my collection still.
Wow, that's awesome. Hey, Jimmy Food's in the chat. So that con in Kansas City is where I met Phil when I was 15 years old.
Maybe 13.
Oh man, that's awesome. Well, that does sound like exactly like something John Byrne would write on a
for
page
sure.
That he didn't.
Sure.
Do you still have the page?
I still have that comic book. Yes. It was.
Oh, it was a comic that he signed.
I couldn't afford. My dad didn't want to pay the $50 for.
No.
So I had to pay a lot more for my John Byrne X-Men page later.
And it's a very nice one. I think it's in the set that we're going to look at tonight.
Yeah.
It's the last piece that we're going to show. I kept everything in order in the email.
Yeah, I sent you a bunch, and I didn't know how many you wanted to use, but I could sit here and go through all. Why do I have 500 pieces? Like all.
I think it was 600 pieces when I counted. At least on Cap, you have 600 pieces.
Yeah, and I have a stack about. Let's see, you can't see it on camera. About this high that isn't scanned yet, so that I have to put on Comic Art Fans yet.
Well, get scanning, Phil. I mean,
I know.
In between gigs.
I'm busy making the comics,
That's true. But, I saw a comment from Rich Danny's earlier. He said, I remember Phil's art from the mid-'80s Amazing Heroes letters section.
Yes. That's the first paycheck I ever got for comics. They paid you, you could take $5, a check for $4.95 actually, or store credit with back issues.
Mm-hmm.
But I really wanted the check to say I was a pro. So that's all stuff that I was doing like when I was probably like 18, 19 years old, and just sending it in because I could see those spot ills in the back, and it just like I didn't think I was a real artist until I could see my stuff on newsprint somewhere. And getting into Amazing Heroes was a cool backdoor into that.
That's awesome. Rich says that he had some published in there too, and he still has one of the checks somewhere.
Yeah,
not to cash it in, right?
No, I was in college. I cashed mine.
Right, exactly. I know, I get that. That's funny. One of my prized possessions is an Amazing Heroes cover. Bill Willingham Elementals one where the Elementals are painted and the villains are all in pencil around it. So it's like I can never own a painted Willingham D&D piece or something, which would be an absolute grail for me if I could get one. But at least I have something painted, and it's from like my favorite comic book work from them. So
for sure.
Amazing Heroes was a great magazine. Early on, I felt it definitely filled a void. Prior to like Wizard magazine coming out, but kind of post Buyer's Guide.
It was sort of that happy medium between like CBG being mostly ads and press releases and letters, and Amazing Heroes being just Comics Journal being like
right.
it was so over my head when I was a kid. I remember reading it, and one issue and the topic was like people excoriating Mike Grell for using Zipatone and Warlord. And I thought, how dare people speak negatively about Warlord? I was like, how these people seem to be mad at comics. I didn't get it. But yeah, Amazing Heroes was like that perfect like middle lane there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bill Reinhold says that fanzines were great for up and coming artists like the Buyer's Guide, Comics Feature, etc. Yeah,
for sure.
They were outlets, right? I mean, prior to that, it was like you said, Comics Journal or fanzines, Comics Buyer's Guide. I mean, but even the Buyer's Guide didn't really have a lot of fan-related art going into it all. That was all marketing. Right. But those days are gone. But we have the internet now, so we don't need those exact same opportunities as you guys needed back in the day. But that was fun. We were all discovering new stories, new ways of telling stories, new creators, new writers. I mean, the mid '80s were just fun. It was my first comic shop that as soon as I could drive in 1984, I would hit like the 3 comic shops in the Cleveland area once a week just to see anything new, buy back issues and everything. It was if I had a time machine to go back, I'd do it all over again. It was such a good time, It
was an exciting time. I think that's when comic shops finally got to Iowa, where I lived and live now. Was in the mid 80s. And I remember walking by one coming home from a movie, and it was closed by then, but just sticking my face to the glass to see what was in there, to see this, like, it was called Sensation Comics, and just to like look and see what was on the stands. And I could see even through that plate glass window, I could see there was a rack with comics I'd never seen or heard of before, like Justice Machine and Nexus and Cerebus and Love and Rockets. They're all there, and I could not wait to come back when they were open.
Yeah, no, because prior to the comic shops, it was always they go into the drugstore, with any or the 7-Eleven with a spinner rack. But I think most of my comic buying prior to being able to drive anywhere was at like a local drug mart in Cleveland. So
I had to ride my bike to. I had certain drugstores carried certain books, so I had to ride to the grocery store and one pharmacy, then another pharmacy, and or beg my mom to take me.
Yeah. Hey, there's a question in the chat from Jerry Amato asking about interiors from Twisted Metal 2. Did they ever show up?
Yeah, I have never found one. I have never found them. And I've spoken with the other artists involved, and I don't think we'll ever get those back. For Bill, you may not know, but it's a super rare comic. It was done just as a promo for Sony, and there were supposed to only be 50 of them. So it's one of the rarest comics of the modern age, and I can't believe Jeremy's got the cover, which is incredible. It has an awesome Duncan Fegredo cover.
Does it?
Yeah,
I love Duncan's work. Well, I wonder, is the cover on CAF? I'd be curious to see that, but that's unfortunate. So the interiors didn't make their way back to you.
Yeah, I don't think so, because it wasn't officially. It was through DC, but it wasn't officially a DC gig because it was through their, like their licensed department. The people that make the Snickers ads and the Gatorade ads and things. So it doesn't quite go through the same art return process, I don't think. But it was a fun gig to do, and it's one of those things that, like, when sometimes you do something and it goes on to have this like second life that you don't know about. Like I did that gig and it was over, and I thought it was done, and then it became this real like cultural artifact in its rarity. So it's pretty neat.
Oh, that is cool. Jeremy says that he thinks it's on CAF. First he says it's on CAF, and he thinks it's on CAF. I'll check after the show, Jeremy. That's interesting. But so before we got a lot to talk about, a lot of art to look at. But I did mention that you were coming to OAX, and I just wanted to thank you for accepting our invitation for OAX 2026. I mean, it's going to be a blast. I mean, you were kind of when we were thinking about the type of creators that we want to have at the show. I mean, the people who are fans of the medium. I mean, and the fact that you've been on CAF for a long time, you're an art collector. I'm just hoping that you will stay at your table as long as you can for most of the show.
Yeah, is this going to be the first convention I lose money at? That's possible.
Well, in a while, right? Since those early days.
Yeah, since the early days when I was paying for tables. Yeah, it might be because it's going to be a definite tempting time for me. So I don't know exactly how it's going to go, but I thank you for bringing me out, and I can't wait to. I haven't done a show in Florida for a long time, so it'll be neat to see the people down there again, and of course it will be awesome to be in such a art centric con. I love the fact that there's so many new conventions popping up these days, but more and more of them are sort of catch-all pop culture conventions, and it makes me appreciate those comic centric, art centric shows like Terrificon or Heroes more and more. When you find those, you have to hang on to them.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that was the goal, with the OAX, just to it'd be focused on the creators and not just comics, but we have the IX in there, so we have the illustration artists are there, card art, and we're bringing in just a very diverse group of collectors as the attendees, and it's fun because you're really exposing these collectors to things that they're down a narrow path of buying, and then you help them realize that there's so many other things out there that they can pick up. And
I can't wait. I was just at a small convention, and I had a patron who was talking to me at that con, and they went last year, and they couldn't say enough fun things about it.
Good. Peter Rowe asked, will you be sketching at OAX?
Yes.
I would assume that you have okay, good. We're going to be, and just so everybody knows too, we're technically launching it's pre-OAX season right now too. We're 6 months away from the show. Today's the 19th of August. The show is February 20th. So when the clock strikes midnight tonight, we'll be officially 6 months away from OAX. So Phil gets to be the first person that we announce as having a pre-OAX list. So we're starting it tonight, and I actually made it live on the site just after we got started, so I'll throw the link in the chat so people know where it is. I think most people know how to get over to OAX, but as a reminder, go ahead and throw that in there. But the website is oa-expo.com. And links in the chat, shows your options. We talked about I think last month about what the possibilities were. The only thing I wanted to confirm, and I should have asked you before the show started too, was the color piece, right?
Yes.
That we don't have a color example on that page to show, but I think when we talked, you only wanted to do one, right? Is that true?
Yeah, I think I'll just limit it to one, because it's not. I usually don't bring those tools to shows or even spend a lot of time coloring in studio unless I'm doing like a full painting.
Mm-hmm.
I probably should keep it to one for the most part, but there'll be an opportunity to grab one of those if you do want to get one.
Awesome. And that was 11 by 17 color. And let me just show, I made slides, the same images that people are probably looking at now if they went over there. But just to kind of give you an idea, you're doing 9 by 12s for $150. And I should let everybody know too, Phil, because you had mentioned that you don't accept money up front. You'll be collecting at the show. Anybody who emails a pre-OAX commission request in, you'll let them know that you're doing it and you're going to have it for them at the show so that they can take care of paying you there. Or heck, I imagine if they really wanted to PayPal you or something in advance, that would be fine too.
Yeah, but I just hate holding. I don't like holding people's money in case something, a lot of things can happen in life. And if something goes wrong and you don't get your piece, or you're not able to pick up your piece, I can always sell it later, but if something goes wrong and I have your money, that's more problematic. And I'd rather not go down that path.
Well, given, you've been around the hobby long enough, you've heard numerous horror stories and reputations gone, sideways because of stuff like that, Phil. So it makes perfect sense to approach it that way.
Yeah, my reputation's not worth $150 commission.
No, not at all. So you had some 9 by 12 options, full figure 11 by 14 options, and then you had the 11 by 17 full figure options. So I threw together, just like I say, a couple different slides here, and I did make a note on one of the slides. I think it was the last one. Where was it? Here, where if by chance somebody wanted 2 characters or something, because you're going to get emailed when a request comes in. So if somebody really wanted 2 characters. You could tell them it's not whatever. It's not $250. It's going to be $300 or whatever. It's up. You guys can work it out, and So if something doesn't fit the pigeonhole, they want just this single character, bust, blah blah blah. You'll let them know if it's a possibility or not.
Yeah, I'm a reasonable person, so we'll figure it out.
Oh man, yeah. Cancer just let us know that what was the countdown? I haven't looked at. We have there we go. 183 days, 18 hours, 27 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, I'll be here no time.
Yeah, but anyway, but it's great that you're doing it, Phil, and the pre-OAX works out really well for our collectors, just because it lets them know when they get to the show that they're picking stuff up. They kind of if they can take care of 5 or 6 commissions in advance of the show, that lets them not have to race to those tables when the show starts. They can go elsewhere, and that's why it's worked out really good. Because some of the collectors or some of the artists do take payment up front, so it's like the collectors can put their money in early and then replenish their money by the time the show happens. So, we were thinking strategically as well. And at the end of the day, if you do like a half a dozen commissions before the show starts, like that whole thing about breaking even or not, you already know you're okay by the time you sit down at your table.
I will have that money already spent when I get there.
Oh boy, well you're gonna. I can't wait to see you on the show floor. It's gonna be very very fun. and I know you've known Mark Hay for a while, so you
Yes.
guys have been good friends. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like one of the first dealers. He's actually the first dealer website I ever created after
really?
CAF was for Mark. Yeah.
No, he's a great guy.
Yeah, no, we've always gotten along really well. Just got to see him at San Diego.
Cool.
He's still a very happy man. So, all right. Well, why don't we? Yeah. Oh, there we go. Some other people. Okay, 78 watching and only 24 likes. Come on, everybody. We have almost 80 people watching. 79 right now. Just give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to throw comments in at the end of the show. So Phil, back to when you're thinking about so we you've been a creator for almost 40 years. But so was buying those first pieces of art because you wanted to collect it, or because you kind of wanted to, look at, techniques of other creators? Which was really the first thought when you started collecting?
It was really, and this isn't going to sound real, but it really was an even split. I really wanted to see how people did things, but then I also really just wanted those objects, those objects of art to appreciate. But also I wanted to learn. I wanted to see how, because I would say, like, even to this day, like, my actual, like, level of technical expertise, like my chops, so to speak, are like sort of right in the middle percentile of professional working artists. I'm not anybody's idea of like an artist, like superb draftsman. I think I'm a good storyteller and I compose well. But I'm not Mark Schultz or Steve Rude, or Frank Rosetta. I'm not going to blow your mind with how I draw. So I have to study. Like, I need to put the work in. And so seeing those things in person really helped me get an idea of how these people are doing it, and if that's something that's attainable for me, if that's something I can train for, or if it's just like dunking a basketball. Like, I'm never going to get there. I'm 5'7", man. I'm not dunking. So it was equal parts just pure fandom, wanting to have the piece, like I think most collectors are, but then also wanting to learn, and not just the technical aspects of draftsmanship. I wanted to learn about production processes and things like that. So I wanted to see like how the sausage was made, and each time I bought a page, I learned a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes a lot of sense. As a wait a minute, I'm sorry, I was looking over at the chat. Some people are saying hi to you in the chat, by the way. Rod, what was it? Instantly Film.
Am I not looking at the chat?
And James Henderson did have a question before we move on. He said, for larger pieces with two characters, does Phil work on 11x14 or 11x17?
11x the choice of the commissioner. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And the thing you're mentioning, like, you're not going to be a Mark Schultz or a Bernie Wrightson. The thing about comics and storytelling is you don't have to be like the most a classical illustrator to tell a good story. I mean, you can embrace the someone who's just an amazing illustrator, but at the end of the day, if you're a good storyteller through your imagery, I mean, that's all that matters. And like you mentioned kind of early in the interview that we're in a really interesting period in comics and art collecting, and that we're gifted with a lot of really, really talented people who approach comics in different ways. And to me, you don't have to be like the best draftsman to be, a well-respected creator and illustrator in comics. You just need to be able to tell a really good story. And when you do that, that's, because I remember looking at Turtles, and it like kind of gave, at the time, and I'm thinking, are these guys really good? How good is that? It didn't make sense to me. It was like in that same kind of vein of maybe first time I saw Frank Miller and wondering, I don't get this guy, right. And then, but then you get it, right? Yeah. So,
I think you nailed it. Yeah. And I think that is someplace where I am in the higher percentile of people that know how to tell stories visually. So I think whatever gifts you're given or develop, you sort of find a workable solution to making comics. And sometimes being able to really draw, like, can hold you back. Like if you can draw anything, sometimes you don't have to reason your way out of a storytelling problem. You just sort of muscle through it by drawing everything. And then the panel becomes a mishmash because you didn't find a workaround to like accommodate your own drawing style. I know it's kind of deep in the weeds here, but sometimes being able to like guitar solo all the way through a song makes for a boring song. You know, sometimes you have to be sly, and I think audiences, readers can also identify with that also. Like if they see something like, I mean, everybody does love Steve Rude, but like I think when Steve Rude was dropping around the same time, a lot of like more popular cartoonists were exploding. Steve Rude looked like he came from outer space because he was so impeccable in his illustration technique. And there was no like foothold for amateur artists to look at him and say, oh, I want to draw like that. Like they could do with like a John Byrne. They could say, oh, I can draw a mouth like that, you know? So that was sort of their toehold into that style and made them think maybe I can draw. And I think that's why Michael Golden is such an influential artist for my generation and beyond, because he combined those two worlds. You know, he has that verisimilitude of an accurate draftsman, but then enough cartooning in there that like an amateur observer can sink their aesthetic teeth into and sort of say, oh, I can get with this cartoony stuff, but also he really is a superb draftsman. So he was sort of that unicorn of both of those two phenomenon. And I think that's why he's such a titanic figure in modern, like, you know, 80s, 90s and beyond comics.
No, I think he's, you know, one of the more influential creators on artists of the 90s and onward, right? I mean, just because he did have a style that was very unique, and but yeah, it stood out in a crowd, and you know, at a time like you said, you know, when I wanted to learn how to draw comics, I copied John Byrne, you know, or George Perez, but that was, you know, I tried to teach myself how to draw based on, you know.
Yeah, you weren't copying Russ Heath.
No, or Gene Coleman, or you know, or Ed Hannigan, or Al Milgrom. No, none of those. If you know, if Byrne or Austin were working at it, that, you know, then it was worthwhile to try to figure out, you know, if I could copy their work and do something unique. But yeah, no, that's an interesting way.
I'm just now seeing everybody's comments. So awesome! Thank you to everybody who's leaving a comment.
Oh, did I? You know what? I didn't tell you to click on the comments tab on the right. Now you see it. Yeah, all right. Yes. So yes, we're not here in a vacuum, Phil. There's lots of people chatting, and Alex Toth. Let's see. Bill Reynolds says Alex Toth helped with combining all that. Great.
Oh yeah.
Deadline. Yeah.
Yeah, but he was another one of those people that, like, again, to a young amateur, looks like he came from another planet, because what he's doing is such black magic, like in terms of like the economy that he's employing when he creates a page. Like that is like, it's almost like an acquired taste. You have to sort of work your way up the tree as a cartoonist or illustrator to get what he's doing and start appreciating it. It's hard for a 12-year-old, you know. A 12-year-old can see Bernie Wrightson and go, pretty, you know, they know that's pretty, and and they can get into it. And he again, like Golden, combined enough cartooning elements into his fine art elements that made it accessible. But like a guy like Toth is somebody that it sort of takes a while to get into as an artist.
I agree. I've seen a fair amount of Toth art, and sometimes it's, you know, it's hard to get his storytelling. I mean, but I only mean that in that it is so well done that sometimes you just kind of look at it and think, you know, why, you know, what were the decisions that went into the piece, and then the more you look at it, though, you just you realize how, you know, what an incredible storyteller he was.
Yeah,
you know,
he's one of them. I think he's one of the more represented artists in my collection. I think I might be around a dozen Toths.
See, you can't stop at just one.
No. Yeah, Kirby, Toth, Redondo, Tony Salmons, Yeah, there's a few artists that I just have probably way too many of.
Well, I think we just probably start looking at some of these pieces because we do have a lot to look at.
Sure.
And again, like you just mentioned Kirby. You have one of the cooler Kirby pieces in here based on who the inker was, which I kind of forgot about. And then when I was going through your list, I was like, oh, that's a really nice.
It's wild, isn't it?
It's totally wild. So, and I don't even remember what number. We've got a lot of pieces in the queue here, so I want to make sure we don't. I think it might be early, but yeah, is it okay? We'll just dive in.
Yeah, talking about I'm happy to talk. You're going to have to cut me off, in fact, probably.
All right. No, I don't mind. I don't mind. Well, we got plenty of time here, but we get to start off with a memorable storyline, right, from Daredevil 162, where Daredevil and the Hulk. I mean, that's the battle you never thought you'd see, and then here we got it.
Yeah, it was such an amazing. It was an amazing time for me to like this. When I was talking about, I finally had DC money and I was going to go start buying original art. This is what I bought. And it was not cheap at that time. It was like the mid 90s. It was still $400, which was a lot then. But I'd had a good weekend at the con, and this comic book meant a ton to me. Because when I was growing up, I knew I wanted to be a cartoonist, but I did not know exactly what kind of cartoonist I wanted to be until I saw this comic. And then I was like, yeah, I want to be this kind of storyteller. I want to engage in this kind of high contrast storytelling, this high contrast rendering. And seeing Frank's stuff, even though it wasn't like full Sin City Frank yet, it was just like this little switch went off in my brain, and I knew I wanted to be not just an artist, but also a writer, and I wanted to be a storyteller. So I went from somebody that had just kind of an amorphous idea of wanting to be a cartoonist to actually wanting to be this kind of cartoonist. And it's probably why Frank is my top influence, or at least up there with Kirby and Toth. But yeah, and so having a page from a comic that meant that much to me was like super important to me. And I got to, I had a nice little, on Comic Art Fans, had a nice little chat with Joe Rubinstein about this because he inked this one. And I think Klaus helped out a little bit too. So it's got a little bit of Klaus in it. And then just recently, it was like a full circle moment that I got to do a story that Klaus inked, which was like, like talk about, like the genie came through and gave me that wish, like I went from this kid that that worshiped Miller and Jansen Daredevil to a person that Jansen inked, which is mind boggling to me. It's like getting called up on stage by your favorite band to solo with them.
That's what this industry is like, though, right? I mean, you do get to work with sometimes you get to work with people who you really have a lot of respect for. I mean, did you, before this time period? I mean, did you think about writing comics too? I mean, or was
I was always I sort of trained myself in high school. I went to a very small high school, 36 people in our graduating class, but
that's small.
Yes. But there were two other dudes in that high school who were into comics. They were older than I was, but we were all serious about making comics. So we made comics for ourselves, and we gave them to our friends, and we took it very seriously. We had like a publishing schedule, and we held each other to task, and we had different genres that we worked in. And so, yeah, I was always writing because also at that time I was living in a very tiny town that didn't get comics, but did get magazines. So I had to go to other towns to get my comics, but I could get Epic and I could get Heavy Metal. And those were all short story anthologies. So it really sort of trained my brain to work in short stories. And so I was always writing and drawing my own short stories. It's just that as a professional, I got work first as an artist.
Nice. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I always kind of forget about Epic Magazine.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was always a fun read. So, all right, so I'm going to move on from this one and do something a little different. This is from What the Spirit, right? And now here, and before you even talk about this page, I should have started before I even started showing artwork. I should have prefaced this whole side of the conversation on this question. There's a friend of mine who says that he can tell a lot about a collector by the way they organize their comic card fans. And if anybody's popped into your calf gallery since we got started here, they will see that you have a very interesting a way of organizing your artwork that is unique, in that your gallery rooms are all based on the by years, 80s, 90s, but also, and this is really the question I'm curious about, is that when you title your artwork, you typically don't mention like the issue or page number. You say what the title of the book is and the artist in there, but there's no reference to when it was published. And now, is that because you're in a hurry, or is it because you're more interested? Well, I don't even know. You tell me why.
It's because I thought I would ever only have one example of that artist thing. Okay. And so I'd be like, okay, this is my Don Newton Aquaman. And then I got another Don Newton Aquaman, and I had to say, well, this is Don Newton Aquaman number 2. I usually do try to mention it in the description. If I know, I try to mention it in the description. But to me, it's more important for people to search on the artist and then see. Like I don't ever really search on characters or titles. I always search on artists when I'm on your website. So that's the number one thing I'm always gonna mention. Yeah.
No, that makes perfect sense, right? I mean, that's what's important is the artist or the title. Okay.
Yeah, but this is like to me, this is like pure Woody. You see that in submarine interior, that classic Woody submarine interior tech, that actually got me a job at Marvel. Got me my first job at Marvel. I swiped one of these interiors for a spaceship on a Guardians of the Galaxy submission. I swiped one of these sort of submarine hulls, and the editor, Terry Cavanaugh, saw that, and he did not call me out on swiping it. He gave me like a fist bump of recognition.
He complimented.
Yeah, he's like, this kid is swiping from the right people. And he gave me a job on the spot, which was awesome. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Woody, even though I don't really draw like him at all. But it's really incredible to see all this, like Wally at sort of the height of his powers. And of course, it's the Spirit, and it's Eisner and Pfeiffer, and it's also awesome because I think I described it in the description on CAF, but it's a page that had a lot of last minute adjustments made to it, and you would never know that unless you saw it in person. So if you keep zooming in on the forehead of the dictator,
right,
there used to be a forelock of hair there that indicated that this was like a Hitler analog. And that where it's pasted up in the word balloon there, he's saying something like, this crew are all Jews and they're going to kill me. So it was, the story originally was about Hitler escaping to the moon, where he eventually dies. And you can see they changed his mustache to a handlebar mustache, and they altered his swastika to like a stylized like hammer and plow, I think. And made him sort of a generic dictator. But it's the kind of detail you don't see unless you can throw it on a light box, which I did immediately when I saw those paste ups and whiteout. In this bottom left panel, he says, "What's that, my leader?" Originally, it says, "What's that, my Führer?" Wow. And all that got changed at an editorial decision at the last minute, probably a wise one, to not do a Hitler science fiction story. But it's cool to see. It's cool to see those sort of decisions being made on the fly. And also, like I said before, it's just like a perfect example of Woody's technique.
And that's Zipatone on here as well.
Yeah, and that
I take it
Zipatone
he didn't get any grief like Grell
no,
did.
not like Grell or I can't remember who it was, Vinny or Grell, that was inking the book at the time. But that Zipatone looks like it was put down yesterday.
Really? Wow.
It is so crisp, and I don't know the secret because I have some Zipatone that was put down in like 1992 that is yellow and brittle, but this was put down in the early 50s and looks like it was like it came out of the factory. So
wow. Even in that first panel.
Yeah. Just, perfect.
Wow. It's a great page. There's I know several collectors that would, love to get an example from Wally, with this kind of interior shots and that sort of thing, even though it's not, I mean, if I could get an example, this is what you'd want.
It's not an EC, but it's got all those hallmarks with that spaceship stuff, which is pretty incredible to me. Mm-hmm. And it's got all the double lighting that you want from a Woody page.
Oh yeah. No, it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Bill says you should do a post about that Spirit page. Break it down.
I think I did. I think if you go to the CAF, if you go to my gallery, I do write about it quite a bit on that one.
Dave Kopecki says the 90s word balloon and glue was the worst, and that's probably true. But this is 52, so they made good Zipatone back in the 50s.
Well, just in general, physical tools were better then.
Yeah.
They stood the test of time. Like that ink is still jet black. Yeah.
Wow. And is this oversized too?
Yes, it's big.
Gosh. Yeah. So a page like that, when you see it, wherever you saw it, at a show, at a dealer table, when you see it, you're just like, you look at the price, you knew it right away, right? I'm walking away with this.
No, that one took a while. That one took.
Did it really?
Thinking. Yeah, because it was a lot. I don't know how long I've owned it. See, that's someplace I'm bad at this. I usually remember how much I paid for something, but I don't remember how long I've owned it. At the time, I think I paid $1,200 for that Spirit page, which seemed like a lot. It's not anymore. But it seemed like a lot at the time. And I had to think about it. And I think I did buy it online. I think it was like an online purchase. And I bought it from a dealer named Lee DeBroff, who was very gracious and helped and sort of was very gentle with me through the process of spending that much money.
I haven't heard Lee's name in a long time. That's funny. He was one of those guys that was there in the early days of me getting started. I think he was on the Comic Ardell mailing list that I was. Yeah. Many collectors were on in the late 90s and early 2000s. But I haven't. Gosh.
And he was even.
That's funny. I feel like I haven't heard his name in 20 years.
Yeah, and he was even sort of like not that eager to sell it, but he did have it for sale. Mm-hmm. But he was. The blow was cushioned by knowing it was coming to somebody that really would appreciate it. And not flip it, My estate will flip this. I won't.
So here we have a character designed by Jack Kirby, which is pretty awesome to see. And and I think that there's Jack, of course, did a lot of this sort of thing. But what about this particular piece appealed to you, added to your collection?
Again, going back to that, like seeing behind the scenes on things it's like addictive to me to be able to see how something begins. And of course I had this issue of God, what was that comic called? First, where Warlord began and Atlas began. Why can't I remember the name? First issue special?
I think so. That sounds right. Yeah.
Anyway, I have that issue with Manhunter in it. It's got that really memorable cover of the severed head taunting Manhunter. And I saw this for sale at a San Diego and could not walk away from it because, number one, it's a Kirby piece that's still a pencil, just pencils, which is pretty rare. And also it was being sold by Glenn Danzig. So I got to deal with
Kirby fan.
Yeah, and I got to deal with Glenn on the spot, and it was a neat story to like deal with Glenn and also get something that was not published, which is cool, but also to see Kirby's thought process. Here's the whole book right here on one on one piece of artboard. And it was just amazing to see him work it all out, like on the spot, and probably, in that typical Kirby style of like starting in one corner and ending in the other. He probably just started thinking up Manhunter as he was working. But it's incredible, and it's pencil, which is pretty important to me to see his work in pencil.
Sure, and it's signed twice. Interesting.
Yeah. Maybe by Ross both times. I don't know.
Right. Well, that is a well-known part of our history in collecting. Right?
But that's okay with me too. That's fine with me.
Right. Exactly. No, I mean, hey, she loved him. She took care of him. I mean, and thank goodness he got so much of his work back, and not all of it certainly, but I think it's cool that there's a lot of stuff out there. There's I forget what. I know, like one of the auction houses has had a lot of his weird character design stuff coming out for the last couple of years.
Comic Link.
Comic Link. That's right. They've had a bunch of that stuff, and it's interesting to see because they're characters that he's just having fun being creative, and I think most of those are really large works too. Like 16 by 24 size drawings too, so they're not small at all. And no, this is awesome.
Yeah, he really is. And I own I own like 3 Kirby pieces that are not inked, which to me was really amazing. In fact, one of the pieces I own is just a rough, which you almost never see, but it's really cool.
Like Barucci says hi.
Hi, Nick. Yeah,
you've done some work for Dynamite over the years, right?
I have, yes. And I'm so dumb. I haven't been scrolling with the chat. And I don't have a YouTube account, so maybe I can't talk to everybody. But
you have to like do a login and
So I'll just say.
The good thing is if you see something over there, if you want to say something, we can highlight it. You're just talking to him directly. So,
yeah. No, it's really cool to see all these.
Let's see here. Oh, this one.
Yeah.
I tried figuring out how to use this in a show graphic, and it's such a vertical image, it didn't really work well.
Yeah.
It's so awesome.
It's like in a way, it's the first Hellboy story.
Mm-hmm.
This famous Legend of the Dark Knight gig, because it's basically a Hellboy adventure, but with Batman, and Mike's style is not quite yet to Hellboy Mike, but it's on its way. You can see it. He's making that jump from, sort of the airier Frazetta Cosmic Odyssey Mike to the more high contrast Mike. And it's just such an engaging page. And I don't know, do you want me to tell you how much I paid for all these? Because people are going to get angry.
No, please do. It's but we know you're not going to be able to say what year you bought it, but
I don't
I guess
remember
based on the
year.
price, we'll have a general idea.
It was $125.
Did you buy it direct from Mike or a dealer?
No, I bought it. I want to say I bought it from a dealer, but I did buy it in person. Well, you can tell it's old because it has the lettering on the board still.
Oh yeah, no. That's at that price. Yeah.
But it's just.
I wasn't collecting at this point. I know that.
But for me, it represented this point in my collecting that I was sort of when when you're young, you get into like music or bands that sort of have to be emblematic of your personality. Like you feel like they have to represent you to be really into them. And with this Mignola page, it was sort of like I would never tell a story like this. It's so still. Do you know what I mean? Like the images are, like you said, they're very vertical, and they're not like swooping. Like Kirby trained me as a kid to have everything flying off the page, and to come, to be bold and coming at you. And Mike has enough of that Frazetta stillness to his compositions that lets him be a little more restrained in his compositions. And so this represented a time when like I could see something and appreciate something and not want to draw like that. Do you know what I mean? Like if I were drawing this page, it would be much more in your face. Not as good, of course, because I'm not. but it represented a point in my career as a collector where I didn't have to get stuff that was emblematic of my taste or of my aesthetic as a creator. It reflects my aesthetic as a reader and a fan, but not necessarily my aesthetic as a creator. So that was like a big step for me.
I mean, that's I love hearing that. Right. I mean, we don't get to talk to a lot of times. I talk to artists who aren't collectors. They just I've been waiting for this conversation for about a year, Phil. We should have done this a lot sooner. Good. I'm sorry, it's all on me for waiting this long. No, but I love that. I think that you definitely come to it with a different perspective and appreciation for for the medium at the end of the day.
And I think it's a sign of just me maturing as a consumer and as an artist that I can like. I mean, somebody else mentioned in the comments, Trad Moore in the comments. I do not want to draw like Trad Moore like any day of the week. I don't want to draw like that, but I appreciate that, and that's something that when I was 20, I would be like, unless I want to draw like that, I'm not down with it. Like I had to like be team Phil. You know what I mean? And it feels so good to it's liberating to let that go and let yourself experience stuff that's outside of your aesthetic wheelhouse and learn to appreciate it. So this page is emblematic of that process for me as a creator.
Well, I mean, so well said. I mean, I think that we as collectors, anybody who's been in it for any length of time, I think a lot of us mature to that point where it's like you started, when you already have a lot and you start learning to appreciate things that maybe, weren't really on your radar before. And it's kind of a wonderful moment when you're willing to open yourself up to that, because you all of a sudden discover new creators, new stories that you would never have even considered reading before. And again, it comes back to, we're kind of in a wonderful period in collecting and comics where there just is so much unique material out there. People self-publishing comics, Kickstarters, doing that. And it's just, it's interesting. It's always wonderful to look back.
It is a great time. And I think at a time when like prices are really going through the roof, one of the places you can still buy art reasonably is with young creators. And once you've jumped over that barrier where you're not bound by your aesthetic preconceptions, you start looking at new young creators and think, there's something about this that's engaging. Maybe it's not my favorite yet, but I can still afford this person's pages. I'm going to take a chance on this. And you can try and expose yourself to new things. And sometimes you at this stage of my career, sometimes I see the art first before I see the book. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, oh, that person's doing something interesting that I see in the original art market. And then that'll lead me to buying their books. So that's a place where you can still buy art reasonably, is directly from creators, especially at the beginnings of their careers.
Well, I can tell you that's the focus of a lot of collectors, these days, is trying to find the next, very talented creator who they can still afford, right?
Here's an example. Here's a great example of what we're talking about. So this is a character that I created with Mike Huddleston called the Coffin, that we created like 25 years ago. But for a certain subset of comic book creators, that was an influential book. And so this is back when Daniel Warren Johnson was not a big shot yet. He was still like an up and coming Chicago creator, and his sketches were $50. And I went to him and said, you can do whatever you want, because $50 is super reasonable. Do whatever you want. And then as sort of like a sweet, nice tribute to me and Mike, he actually did our character. Which,
oh, wow.
Well, a neat full circle moment. And yeah, it was cool to see that our character meant something to him, but also to like I said earlier, just a few seconds ago, getting in on the ground floor of a cartoonist, when they're starting. So, yeah.
So you liked his work?
I liked his work from the beginning, yeah. back when he was doing like Space Mullet and that trucker comic with good old Daniel. And
his lines are pretty long these days.
And I got to work with him, which was pretty rare. Because he writes his own stuff now, but we got to do a short story together, which was pretty exciting.
Oh wow! Congrats. That's well, you've been in the business long enough that you get to work with even the people who are coming up in the field who probably saw your work, and I don't know. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is cool. It's like, I mean, it's really a remarkable time to, at this stage in my career to like meet people who were reading my books when they were kids or adults that are now professionals. It's pretty amazing.
Wow, this thing. See, we know when this was made, 2014.
Yeah.
So 11 years ago. You're right.
Impossible. That was just yesterday.
Yeah, but hey, look at here's that page I was talking about, right? I mean, it was early in the set, so tell us who the creator, the artists are on this page.
This is a weird little. When Topps was making comics for a short time in the '90s, this was from a book called Satan 6, which was a great concept for a comic, which is about a bunch of misfits from hell that have adventures on Earth. And this is Jack Kirby inked by Frank Miller. And I would say it's more than inked by Frank Miller. It's Jack Kirby finished by Frank Miller because he does change quite a bit. You can see the essential Kirby layouts are still there. And the inimitable Kirby dialogue is still there. But like in the Demon, you can definitely see that Frank took over a lot of the drawing. And Frank, of course, made a high contrast because this is sort of prime Sin City era Frank. So there's a lot of Frank's personality coming through there. And I might be one of a kind. I don't think I've ever seen another one. It was an issue where Jack had a lot of guest inkers, and Frank did this page. And I've looked at it so much and lived with it so much that I know there's a typo on it. in the very first panel, the first word balloon should be tailing off panel to the demon, and the second word balloon should belong to this Conan archetype. But the letter will put them together. I don't know if it's fixed in the print edition, but it's from Satan 6 #1, I want to say. Yeah. But it's just neat to have these two people that I consider like my two biggest influences on one page.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I'd be very curious to see if there was any, another page that the two of them worked on that's on CAF. Probably not. I was just shocked when I saw this. I mean, because like you said, it's very heavy, Frank, but that's kind of what makes it fun. I mean, for me, I think that just if he leaned, if he let the Kirby, the postures are there like Robert mentioned in the chat, but still, it's just fun seeing Frank's style in these Kirby poses. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Yeah, it's this neat little. It's a unicorn, but it's beautiful.
Well, congrats! And again, I mean, dealer pickup or
I bought it at a Chicago. I want to say either Chicago Comic-Con or right when it was transitioning to being Wizard World Chicago, which was my home base for a long time. I did that show, many years in a row, and I bought it from a dealer, and I can't tell you which dealer. Yeah, it was probably the most I'd ever spent on anything at the time. It was $900. And that was in the 90s, so it was quite a bit of money.
If that was in the 90s, then you did. Yeah. That's okay. You overpaid, but if there's something as rare as this, I mean, it's irreplaceable. Phil.
Yeah, and plus I always explained it to my wife as, look, I made $1,000 at the show, so I'm still ahead.
And she just kept thinking about that regular paycheck that she made
right,
makes every week. Oh boy. All right. Well, let me see here. We have a Swamp Thing page here.
Yeah, Burning Swamp Thing page from the issue that sort of like really won me over as a kid. The issue where he fights Batman. And the page where where Batman is kicking Swamp Thing through the trash can. For people of my generation, know exactly what I'm talking about. That page is burned into my brain, and this is the page that comes before it. But it was it's not a typical Swamp Thing page because he's clothed and he's in a city, not the swamp. But it's a page from that run that I love the most. So I really had to jump on this, and it was an eBay purchase, believe it or not. And I think I got
buy it now, or was it an auction?
No, it was an auction, and I got it for a reasonable price because I think the seller was from not in America, and he had the auction end on Christmas Day.
Oh.
And that was, and people are busy on Christmas Day.
A little bit.
Yeah, and this was my Christmas present to myself. And I think it was $1,200, which is a very reasonable, looks very reasonable in retrospect. But it, it's Bernie at it, it's peak Bernie, and shows that he wasn't limited to just monsters. Everything in the panel looks beautiful.
Now, is that I know if I would look at your cap, it's not going to say what issue number it is. I think
it's 7, issue 7. I know that issue. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Swamp Thing 7. Thank you, Marcus. Oh, I saw Marcus said 7 earlier.
Oh yeah, it's Swamp Thing number 7. Yeah, the Batman issue for people who don't know. And it's the page. It's the issue where Bernie sets the standard for long Batman ears.
Nice. Well, hey, back in the day, eBay was a great place to pick up comic art.
It was.
I mean, after I picked up my first piece of art at a Wizard World Chicago and came home, and I couldn't wait to look on eBay to figure out what else I could buy, and that was where I bought a lot of my first pieces were there.
I mean, and you can still find bargains on eBay. There's still cool stuff on eBay, but you have to sometimes act really quickly.
Yeah.
This is a page of the famous Deadly Little Miho attack from Big Fat Kill, and it is Frank's layout from that page. I got this at a time when you really could not buy Sin City art. Either it was going straight to Wales or Frank was not selling it. Mm-hmm. But he was letting go of these layouts. And like I said, sometimes I was buying things to learn. And I traded for this piece. And I learned a lot from it because a lot of people see how reductive Frank's style is during Sin City and how high contrast it is. But Frank doesn't cheat. He draws everything and then starts getting rid of it. It's there for, like, if you look at that gun, he really works out how that gun's going to work. And then when you see it in print, it's almost knocked out as a silhouette. Or if you scroll down to Miho in the last panel, he draws her whole figure. And he draws the contours of how the wrinkles are going to break in her outfit. But when he actually goes and inks it, a lot of that stuff is not there but he doesn't cheat his way there. He works through it. And it's amazing to see somebody who is at really the height of their powers still doing the work, not resting on laurels, not resting on style alone, but still working everything out before applying style. And it was very informative to me as an artist. And it was also, like I said, you couldn't get Sin City art at the time. So I thought this is all I would ever see from that. But since then, I do have a page from Sin City. But this layout was like the first thing I got from it and very informative to me.
I get it. I mean, it's interesting to see this because it would have been cool if I could have gotten like the scan of the page too to put it alongside, just to see,
Yeah.
like you were saying, what elements did he remove? Because he didn't cheat. Sometimes when you look at Frank's work, especially during this Sin City work, you think, is he just guessing?
No.
Where elements are, where some of the anatomy might be, that sort of thing. But then when you see this, you realize that he really is thinking through.
Yeah.
How the figures interact with one another, and yeah.
I have another Frank layout from Dark Knight 2, and he's still doing it at that stage. There's in the printed page, there's a scene where Batman's grabbing a bad guy, and his cape overwhelms everything in the panel. It's like this big black blob of a cape. But in the layout I have, he draws through the whole thing. He draws Batman's figure. He draws the henchman's figure. He draws where the henchman is dropping his gun. And then when he inks it, that's all gone. But he works it out. And I think that's why his stuff has such integrity, because he's not skipping any steps.
All right, so now for something completely different.
Yeah, this is the weirdest. It might be the weirdest thing on CAF. It's definitely the weirdest thing in my collection. It's a Pat Boyette painting, and we can't figure out from what. I've gone through Mike's Amazing World and looked at every Charlton comic, looking to see what book this is the cover of, and I cannot find it. We think it's Space Adventures or one of the other, or Flying Saucers, or one of the Charlton space books. But it is so weird, and it is so emblematic of Pat Boyette, who's such a unicorn as a comic book artist. He is the definition of somebody that it takes a while to acquire the taste for Pat Boyette. When I was a kid and I saw Pat Boyette, it was very off-putting, like very off-putting. And then around age 12 or 13, like the grotesquerie of his style started to appeal to me. Like it started to click with me. And I became a big Boyette fan. And I do think his stuff is, like his horror stuff is genuinely unsettling, which makes him a really effective horror artist. And this is the weirdest thing he ever did. It's right up there with his Revelation portfolio, The Day of the Beast, which is like 10 plates just like this about biblical prophecy, which are very just, you'll never see a more terrifying Jesus Christ. As in Pat's.
I'm very intrigued. I'm not familiar with that work.
Yeah, so. Look for his Day of the Beast portfolio. His Jesus looks like he could kick ass. But he's just such a unique artist. And I probably have a dozen Pat Boyette pieces, because for a long time his stuff was very, very reasonable as well. Now it's starting to creep up. Like a Pat Boyette page is going to cost you $400 or $500 just by dint of it being old, because Pat's no longer with us. But at the time I was buying most of my Pat Boyette art, it was all like in the $100 range. And this is a like if I could show you one Pat Boyette piece to get across to you how weird and brilliant he is, it's this.
Well, I'm going to be searching CAF after the show just to see if there's any other Boyette pieces. I mean, there's got to be more. I mean, I know the name and I've seen some of the pieces, but I'm just not completely familiar with.
Yeah, he's such an interesting character. He was a radio guy. He was a filmmaker. He was a celebrity in San Antonio. He was just like a Renaissance man, and also a comic book artist, and just a really brilliant. Did some really fantastic work for both DC and Charlton mostly. I don't think he ever drew a Marvel book, but also extremely fast. So he got a lot of work for being fast.
Well, I'm glad you brought that piece.
Yes,
because I think that is definitely in all the CAF updates and times that we've talked about artwork. I do not believe it Boyette has been on any show that I've done in over 5 years.
Well, cool. This is we were talking about that little. I think it was a little convention in Texas or Oklahoma, and Art Adams was there, and I was not there because I was in college. But my dad happened to be traveling through that town, and he stopped by, and there were a bigger named artist there, but he said that there was this young man sitting on the floor in the hallway drawing in a pad, and he didn't know who I would like to draw, so it would be safe to draw Superman. And he had Art Adams draw me a Superman. And Art Adams is only a couple years older than I am, so it was like but still, to me, this is the very first piece of art I ever owned. So my dad got it for me and sent it to me in the mail. But it hung in my dorm room for a while. But as you can see, it was drawn with like an espresso marker, which Gil Kane used for a long time, and which is why a lot of Gil Kane pages are disappearing. And so some of the details in this, it looks like a combination of Sharpie and espresso, and the espresso is fading. So it no longer hangs anywhere. It's buried in a flat file for safety's sake.
Well, what a great gift.
Yeah, my dad was like, yeah, Dad, you all right? And I was like, yeah, you did. Because he was starting to blow up at the time, by the time I got this.
Right. So when you got it, you knew who Art Adams was.
Yes.
Yeah, all right.
Long shot was happening, and yeah, he was already sort of that first clear descendant of Michael Golden. We were talking about earlier, the first person to sort of synthesize that look, but had in some ways an even more fan friendly style than Michael, because the way he rendered was just so accessible to people. Michael still had enough of a professional, especially on like his work on the Nom, like the technical aspects of his work don't look imitable, whereas art stuff looks like you could swipe it, even if you were untrained, you could swipe the way he draws, like kind of those flipper feet early in his career. You could draw that, or you could draw, the big jaws that he was. So yeah, I think he was a little more like somebody you can imitate. So it made him a little bit, I think, more of a fan favorite at that stage.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm like, James Eagles's art was prolific from day one. I mean, I liked his work from the moment I saw it too. But again, just coming back to the idea that your dad picked this up for you, did I do all right?
Yeah,
I just think
you did okay, Dad.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, and the funny, I've heard there's a few collectors out there whose parents, got them started collecting, and I just think that's wonderful. Because I talk about it a lot here on the channel. I mean, art's something everybody in the family can share. You can actually, what I mean? Collecting comics or statues or other things within this industry are things you might, not all of those things you can share with the family. Art, everybody gets art, right? And it's accessible to everybody. And I mean, I could talk with my kids from the time they were 5 or 6 about comic book art, or even they didn't get it. The thing is, you can't. And even my mom watches these shows and calls me the next day sometimes just to ask me questions, which I tend to get kind of annoyed at. But yeah, it's Mom, and she's in her late 80s, and
you have to educate.
And it's fun. I mean, but that's a wonderful way to get started. With this piece.
Yeah, that's true, Bill. Yeah, I see that too.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, just talking to Reinhold in the chat.
Yeah, big influence on this Bill. Yeah, Willingham. Just from the moment I saw his stuff in D&D modules and things, there was just something about the quality of the line work and the way he inked himself. And then some inkers got it and did better with him. Like Rich Rankin was always like my favorite inker on Bill Willingham. A few other ones were okay, but yeah, there was something definitely cartoony about the way he approached stuff that was just
fun. He looked accessible. He looked like you could do that. I remember the first time I saw him were in those D&D ads that were in comics.
Right. With the no, I know exactly which ones you're talking about. The other, again, those were awesome. I reminisce about Willingham too much, so we won't delve on that. We don't want to bore anybody, but let me see.
So this is a Bernie Krigstein page.
Oh, sweet.
And Bernie Krigstein, once I got into Frank, and once I got really hardcore into learning about storytelling, it didn't take long to stumble on the people that were really high-minded about storytelling, like Will Eisner or Harvey Kurtzman or Bernie Krigstein. And so this sort of represents like a nice little, for people that don't know, he drew what a lot of people consider the best comic book story produced to date, which is called Master Race. This isn't quite have that sort of bravura, like next level capital A art storytelling that Master Race does, but you can see the hint of it in that top tier of panels of the airplane taking off, or the spaceship taking off. And it sort of reflects that some of that story, the sort of staccato rhythms he would achieve with his panel distribution. And so seeing that little hint of Master Race in here made this page irresistible to me. And I really had to have a Bernie Krigstein page, the other Bernie. This is the very first thing I ever bought from Heritage. But I bought it live. This is back when Heritage was still conducting auctions at cons. And they conducted one in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And I bought this at a Chicago con. And they had a booth at that Chicago con, and they had it, against a wall to look at. And I put my bid on, and I won it live, which was very exciting. It sort of got me addicted to auctions, which, mission accomplished, Heritage.
Hey, their live auctions are still fun, right? I mean, it's like it is like a sporting event when you're watching one of their signature auctions live. Just is someone going to cut bid on that? And it's wonderful. But I love those first 5 panels. I love the fact that with the lettering crossing over the tops of the 2 panels to tie it all together. I mean, when I think about all the artwork that I've looked at and talked about with various collectors here on the channel and everything, I don't feel like I've seen that technique used in anything that I've seen before. I love it.
It's because EC pages were lettered when they were given to the artists. They were pre-lettered. So those were all meant to be individual panels. And Bernie cut them he cut them in half or thirds and turned them into their own little sort of like mini pages in a way. And also, if you look at a lot of these word balloons, you'll see that they're cut and repasted because Bernie was not happy with the way he was being given pre-laid out pages by the letterer. And Al Feldstein did that to save time and to make, make the process smooth. But Bernie was such a maverick and such an innovator that he could not sit still for that. Master Race is famous for being just sliced to ribbons by Bernie and repasted and relettered. It still uses the machine lettering that he was given, but he recut it all by hand to make the panels, to fit the panels that he had envisioned. And so to see a little bit of that here was seeing a little bit of that historical technique that he used on Master Race. So to me, it was like a little piece of history to get this and to see how he worked. And he was so far ahead of him. He was so far ahead of the Resto comics. It's hard to describe. On top of Master Race, he did so many great, like In the Bag and Monotony, just stories that he really played with storytelling a great deal. And I respect him for that. Like his although his rendering is like satisfying to me, it's secondary to me. And he even changes his rendering style from story to story. There's no real set in stone Bernie Krigstein drawing style, but there is a Bernie Krigstein storytelling style. And so to me, he's like a foundational talent for me.
Well, congrats on your first auction. Well, live auction.
Yeah.
Victory from Heritage.
Congrats or condolences.
I bet you didn't pay 25% on that one, though, right? That was probably
that was before that. Yeah.
That made it even more appealing. Not just being on the floor in front of other bidders.
Yeah.
Did you have like somebody you were competing against?
I don't think so, because it was kind of it was pretty expensive, and it was like everyone was there buying, everyone was there to buy John Byrne pages or Todd McFarlane pages or whatever, and I was there for dead guys. So, so I might have been out on an island about him, but it still went pretty high. I think it went for 700 at the time, which is a decent return.
Well, then they had a lot of good bidders there on the floor for
yeah. So this is a page from Hell by Alan Moore and Eddie Campbell. For people that don't know, and I sometimes I do buy pages for who wrote them, although I do think Eddie did a brilliant job with this page and this series in general. And it was an awesome point in my career to have a short story in the same book as this when it came out. It was originally serialized in an anthology called Taboo that Steve Bissett put out. And when I was at the very beginning of my comics career, Steve bought some short stories for me and ran them in Taboo along next to creators like Mobius and Eddie Campbell and Alan Moore. And to me, that was like dying, going to heaven. I thought I was a real deal when that happened. But this page itself, what's special about Eddie is that he's got this sort of confessional mark making in his style. It's all very immediate and it's not fussy, but the emotion is there. And like the drawing itself, like technically sometimes it's wobbly, but what is being communicated is not. It's always dead on, and his style is so unique that like nobody draws like Eddie, because he lets a certain aspect of his personality take over, and it's almost like that old spiritualist thing of like automatic writing, like where the supposedly the dead spirit would take over your hand and write for you. It's almost like Eddie draws that way. Like he lets like his inner id just take over and draw. And so there's stuff in it that in isolation looks amateurish, but in total looks incredible. And also it's a very scary scene. It's maybe the scariest scene in the book outside of an actual murder. And I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but it's a really amazing page. And I bought it from Eddie in person, which was also special. At a time when they were $125 a piece. I just saw one go on Heritage for, I think, $4,000. So
yeah,
and it's not as cool as this one.
Man.
Yeah, for the people that haven't read it, it's the old guy is responsible for the Jack the Ripper murders, and he's taunting a psychic who is supposed to have seen who the murderer is, and William Gull, who is the murderer, is taunting him for not knowing who he is, which is pretty amazing. And it's written by Alan Moore. So yeah, right. There is an Alan Moore premium to original art. There really is. A few writers can affect original art sales, and Grant Morrison's one of them, and Alan Moore's another. I don't know too many others, but those two guys do for sure. Neil Gaiman does as well, but those two guys for sure.
Oh, well, congrats on this. Yeah, there isn't enough Alan Moore penned pieces that are out there, but you're right, they do. I mean, whenever anything comes up, there's always going to be a premium for that, and these pages have always been in demand. They don't come up that often. Well, I can't, but if we were to do a search on past sales on Heritage, I don't think we could look at the last couple of years, and there won't be a lot. I know that.
I think I have 3, and one actually signed by Alan, which was pretty exciting. A Swamp Thing page he signed. I don't know if we'll get to it. I think it was in the batch I sent you, but maybe not in the.
We'll try to get through. We're not limited, like a hard out in 20 minutes here. We can go through some stuff for this. there's a lot of good pieces here, and we do. And just so everybody knows who's watching the show afterwards, in the show description is a link over to Phil's calf gallery, so you can check out the majority of these pieces are posted there, and leave some comments. Afterwards.
You can spend all day there, you know. But this is a classic OMAC page by Kirby, and I had to get this because it's I think it's still Royer inked. Yeah, it's before Bruce Berry took over, I think. And it's just a classic Kirby fight page, you know, where like a bunch of guys pile on the hero and then the hero flattens them all. It's just an emblematic OMAC page. And I love OMAC. I love his look. And this is everything you want from an OMAC page.
So would you say this is more like your storytelling, you know, more
in your face? Yeah, I'm a little more in your face. I try to find that middle ground between OMAC and between Kirby and Krigstein. You know, I want to be high-minded about the way I present the information, but when it's time for a superhero punching a car, he's going to punch it into your face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's I've got my only Kirby is a Kirby Thor page, and it's him battling the Wrecker, and it's just
is it
throwing a crane at you, and it's everything you'd want.
Is it a Vinny inked or
it's Vinny inked?
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's
I'm
a
happy
crapshoot.
with it.
Yeah, sometimes they're great, but I remember the first time I saw a Bill Everett inked Thor page, and it blew my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still don't. I have probably a dozen Kirby's, and I still don't have one from like sort of what people consider the golden age of Kirby, which is like 64 to 68 or 69. Everything I have is either before that or after that. So it's one of the grails I have left to get like a Kirby Senate page or a nice Kirby Giacoya. I have some Kirby Giacoya. I think Giacoya is my favorite Kirby inker, but I would like to get one from that sort of golden era, mid to late 60s. But those aren't getting any cheaper somehow.
No, they are not.
So this is from that meeting we were talking about earlier with Bernie.
Oh, okay.
And this was that con in '94, and I had to introduce myself as the person wrecking his character. And I think at the time Bernie wasn't really doing a lot of Swamp Thing sketches because I think there was a little friction with DC at the time about that. It was short-lived, I believe, but he made an exception and made me this really nice Swamp Thing sketch. And it's classic Swamp Thing because for a while this is a rare phenomenon that Bernie, who created Swamp Thing, later in life started drawing the Steve Bissette Swamp Thing. Like he started drawing the one with the the larger roots coming off of his face and the hair growing out of his the grass growing out of his back. And he knew how much that the classic Swamp Thing meant to me. And because we had talked about it, and he drew that for me. So it was great to see him draw his Swamp Thing. Even as much of a fan of the Bissette Swamp Thing as I am, I own a page or two of that. It's still cool to see him do this. And to me, my mind will always go back to that meeting. And always go back to the fact that we played pool that night in the hotel basement, and we got to know each other, and it was really cool. So do meet your heroes. I would say you should.
Right. Well, it's 94. 94 is when think when you started on the book.
Yeah,
right?
That's when I started on Swamp Thing. Yeah.
You were worried that you might wreck his
yeah. And who knows? Maybe I did, but it's really a special memory. And I will say, of my heroes, my comics heroes that I've met, maybe 1% of them have let me down. The rest have all turned out to be awesome, either very gracious or have become friends. So meet your heroes. Yeah. It's worth the gamble. It almost always pays off.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you had that moment. Get to hang out with him, play pool as well. I mean, yeah, that's great. It's really, really nice. And this is a great, it's nice that you got this piece from him.
Yeah. Wow. I might treasure it more than I own a ton of Bernie Swamp Thing stuff. Most of it's prep. He did really detailed layouts of his pages before he drew the pages. Mm-hmm. And those were, by the time I was collecting art, those were the really only affordable things. So I got that one finished page and then a lot of his sketches. I don't know how quick he did it. Because I was manning my own table at the time, so I had to go back and forth. So I was running. He was upstairs, like on the marquee row with the superstars, and I was downstairs with the newbies. So I would always run back up and downstairs to check on his progress. But because he was also signing a lot of books at that time, I also had him sign my Batman 7. I mean Batman, my Swamp Thing #7 with Batman, and I have 2 copies. I have a really nice one and a Beat to Hell one that I read over and over and over again. And I brought him the Beat to Hell one because it meant so much to me. And he got it. He understood. Mm-hmm. But I think I think his pen to paper time was probably not more than like 10 minutes.
Incredible. Well, you started out in the basement, but you've moved on from there.
Yeah, right.
So here we go. What is this? Marvel Team Up 75? Yeah, 75.
Yes. The Smoke of That Great Burning.
Yeah.
It's Spider-Man and Luke Cage Power Man, and that's a great Spider-Man in the bottom left.
Yeah.
But to me, when I was a kid, I was a big Marvel Team Up guy because especially that Byrne Claremont era of Spider-Man was my Spider-Man. But the reason this is special to me is I got it during a summer, like I don't want to get too like super confessional with this, but my parents were splitting up and I was sent to stay with my grandparents for a week. And my grandma was a big reader, and as long as I was reading, she didn't care what I did. So I took whatever money I had and I would go buy a new comic every day and read it. And this was one of those comics. I read it upstairs in her guest bedroom. And I read it and read it and read it. I read the cover off of it because it's from that era, like it's from the Red Sonja era of Team Up, which is the issue.
Oh, that's I've talked a lot about that era. I'd love to have a page from the Craven issue, right?
Oh, yeah.
Tigra. I mean, there's just something about Byrne at that point, and I never really liked Spider-Man too much as a character, but in that era, that run with Claremont and Byrne, I mean, the stories were great, the art was fantastic, and I'm totally with you. I love that period.
And he and Byrne was still figuring stuff out. He wasn't quite fully, like by the time he got to Fantastic Four, he had figured everything out, and it was like a more like if you asked him, he just kept getting better. Things like he was doing exactly what he wanted to do. But this is an underappreciated thing about comic art in general. Sometimes what's interesting about an artist is stuff that's out of their control. So when they're still figuring stuff out, sometimes it's more interesting. Like when you're talking about how like Elementals is your favorite era of Willingham. Mm-hmm. He gets better as a draftsman, but maybe he doesn't get more engaging as a draftsman than he was during Elementals. It's hard to suss out how much of that is your nostalgia and how much of that is what's interesting about his drawing. But sometimes what's interesting about your drawing is out of your control. And to me, this is a real sweet period of Byrne because the hallmarks of what's interesting about him are all there, but there's nothing rote about the way he's drawing. He's still figuring things out for the first time in every panel, which is really interesting. And if you go to my calf page on this page, Al Gordon chimes in and talks about how this is like one of his first big gigs and how it was a little bit intimidating and how he feels like that first panel's a huge mess and everything, all the buildings look like loaves of bread and not buildings. But it's cool. It was cool to have that exchange with Al about that. And then also the other cool thing, again, I always love behind the scenes stuff. That second panel is a stat, and I peeled it up a little bit to look at it, not all the way because it's really glued on there and it will tear the page. But there's a page where one of those trademark huge Chris Claremont balloons impinges on Luke Cage's afro, and somebody in the art department said, no, we got to re-letter this so it's not covering up Luke's afro, and so they redid it on a stat.
Well, I posted the link to the piece in
cool.
in the chat for everybody too, and yeah, that's true. Al Gordon, I always forget that he's been on the site. I don't know how much art he's actually posted there, but he's a regular user on CAF still. He created an account in 06 and he last logged in August 2025. So
there you go.
I'll have to reach out to him. Maybe he'd like to do one of these. But
oh yeah, he'd be great because he has.
Yeah.
I mean, he was there for so many. He worked on so many of these pieces.
Wow. Whoops, I went too far there. Well, I have to just click one. I went too far back. Here we go. E-Man now. This is Staton, right?
Yep. It's a Joe Staton E-Man cover. And this was one of my favorite books when I was young. And I always whenever I talk to people about why my style looks like it does, it's because I have these twin poles of influence in my sphere of influence, and one of them is Joe Staton and the other one's Bernie Wrightson, which do not go together.
No.
And which is why my stuff's such a mess, because on one end you have this really, really intricate, heavy shadows, high drama kind of rendering style, and then on the other side you have this bouncy, lively, open-lined Joe Staton, and like I will never reconcile those two, but the journey is something you've been watching for 40 years. Me trying to figure that out. But I loved E-Man. I just loved the fact that in an era where comics were getting more serious and more Sturm and Drang, this was just like a almost naive, lively, fun comic book. And that appealed to me even as a kid. Like they always say that like when you're a kid, you always want to read a little bit older than you are. You want stuff that's a little more sophisticated because you think you're figuring something out. And that's true. But there was something about this that was like comfort food that really wanted to pull me back to like just seeing something that was just fun. And also Novocaine was so smoking hot in that comic. Like it awakened some things in Little Phil. When I was young. But
hey, Jimmy Palmiotti's enjoying
Jimmy
tonight too.
Yeah, no, it was a big influence on me, and Joe himself is a real sweetheart. So he was a joy to finally meet and talk to. I'm glad that I think everybody you brought, every piece of art you brought up, I've met everybody who was still alive. You know, at the time, I didn't meet Jack, and I did meet Bernie Krigstein, but everybody else I got to meet and was, genuinely, pleased by almost all of them.
And yeah, Staton is just he's so fun to be around. I've gotten to interview him a couple different times, and I mean, he's just fun.
Yeah, and his stuff is just
he's so talented still. I mean, his con sketches are still great.
Oh yeah, I have a bunch of his con sketches too. He's just so his style is so guileless. It's just what it is. There's no trickery involved. It's just fun and open, and it's like lively on like a really deep level, like it's life, and it's fun. I can't get enough of him. Oh, and here's another book from my childhood that I was really into, which is Warlord. And again, maybe because everybody's naked in this comic, it meant a lot to me as a kid. But also, it was just the way Mike drew looked like a more repeatable Neil Adams. You know, it looked like Neil Adams that maybe I could do, maybe I could figure out. And it's the first, I think it is the first comic I swiped from, like not in a professional way,
Sure.
but like I saw one of those double page spreads and I was like, I wonder if I can recreate that, because all those begin with double page. All those books began with double page spreads. And this particular issue was really important to me because, like I said, my parents were splitting up over, you know, when I was in a preteen, and I was kind of shuttling back and forth between my mom's place in Iowa and my dad's place in Oklahoma. And I was, even though I was pretty young, it's back when you could put like a 13-year-old on a bus to go cross country, and they did. And this was one of the comics I took with me, and I read it by passing streetlight on the long journey to Oklahoma, over and over and over again. And it's just a beautiful, it's a great Warlord story because it's like Grell's Hallmark drawing, but also it's a self-contained story. Like a lot of the Warlord stories were self-contained. So it's neat to have a book that's like a total complete unit and not so continuity dependent. So yeah, it's a special comic to me.
Oh, so again, I got a page that when you saw it, huh?
Yeah, I jumped. I had to get it. Like I'd been toying with the idea of getting a Warlord page for a long time, but then when one from this issue came up, I knew I had to do whatever it took to get it. And then I met Mike.
And you're one of us, Phil. Yes, this is what I love to hear, you know, because it's the same thing, you know, for when you see something that you know, it stirs the right nostalgic chords for you or whatnot.
For sure.
You have to go for it. And, you know, sometimes we as collectors, you know, we second guess ourselves. It costs too much. I mean, what drove me to have to pick up that piece of art? But, you know, a lot of the stories for these pieces just kind of fall right into what all of us wrestle with is, you know, collecting today. Or, you know, I mean, it's fun. You're one of this. We need a club T-shirt, Phil. You're going to get one.
Okay. And I will say this. I forgot to mention we were talking about Joe. I'm wearing my E-Man.
I wondered. Okay, there we go. I couldn't see that before.
When we were talking about like, I've lost it now. It was something about Warlord. Anyway, yeah, I had to get this. I've met Mike, of course, because we both have a long association with Green Arrow, and he was also really charming and nice and did not blame me for wrecking his character. So, yeah, it was fun to meet him.
Mike is a very nice guy. Yeah.
So
here you go, Teen Titans and Perez. I mean,
yeah. So this is this is Teen Titans pretty early on in the run, and it was like the DC book at that time outside of Warlord that felt real to me. Felt like a Marvel, like it felt as real as X-Men to me. And this is also happens when this issue came out, it has that unforgettable cover of the Teen Titans coming across a disassembled robot man in the jungle. And it was so intriguing to me because I hadn't seen the Doom Patrol yet. And seeing George Perez's version of Robot Man was like a bolt to the brain. And I had to know everything about the Doom Patrol, everything from then on. And then DC put out a nice little digest, again with a Perez cover, that reprinted a lot of those Arnold Drake, Bruno Premiani issues that were so far ahead of the time in their weirdness, that it sent me down a path of like, you know, I needed to buy Bruno Premiani pages. I needed to buy Joe Staton pages, you know, whatever era of Doom Patrol I could get a page from, I did. So I've got a lot of Doom Patrol art. But this was the one that sort of started it all. I
was a Marvel reader, and everybody knows Teen Titans was, you know, one of the few DC books that it won me over. That and, you know, like Legion of Superheroes with Giffen.
Well, because they felt like Marvel books.
They did. Well, they were team books, and yeah, there was just something. You're right. They felt like Marvel books. That was what it was. They were accessible. But I remember that cover, I mean, hanging in the vines like that and everything. What a everything about, man, that era was just so fun seeing. I remember. I mean, and again, I love Marvel comics, but I would go to this one drugstore because they always had a good selection of DC, and every week I would be looking for the next Teen Titans book, and I never ever in my life was I a DC fan, and then seeing those along with the Giffen Legion books were just so special, and I don't. It was like I was being influenced by a higher power because
Yes.
I never. But it's funny too. The Warlord books, because being back from playing D&D, Warlord was a comic book that I picked up infrequently, but because it was there wasn't really anything in Marvel that was satisfying that like fantasy urge that was out there. So.
Yeah, and I will say, Warlord, not to denigrate, like to rehabilitate Vinnie Colletta a little bit. I thought he did a great job on Warlord, because he was sort of down to one book. He wasn't doing a million things. He could concentrate on Warlord. So I thought the work he was doing over at Grow was like really, for as much as people run him down, I think he deserves props for what he did on Warlord.
Yeah, no, I agree. When he was trying to ink too many books to make the money he needed, that was when all the shortcuts and things.
When all the backgrounds disappeared. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a page by Steve Rude from a comic book I wrote. Back when DC had the Hanna-Barbera stuff, they did a Birdman book, and we did it straight. Steve did not want to do the Harvey Birdman. He wanted to do a real Birdman. And for me, this was like another full circle moment because, Steve was a huge influence on me, and Nexus came out when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And so Steve was a hero of mine. So it was like really cool to get to work with a hero of mine and make him do what I say. He had to draw what I wrote, which was really amazing. There was a little more to it. I mean, it was a little more of a collaboration than that. Like he brought stuff to the table also story-wise. But it was just so gratifying to see the dude work from one of my scripts, which is like a pinch me moment. So yeah, that's an indulgence. That's why I put that in. It's a little bit of an indulgence for me to put that in there.
Well, we've featured a lot of Steve's work over the years. I mean, again, he stylistically, his Nexus stuff just blows me away.
Oh, yeah.
The way he's just
I'm
rich blacks. I mean, the way he's just handled the anatomy and the characters and the storytelling, the panel work. Nexus is like just one of the most brilliant comics ever. I mean, I think, and all because the dude abides, says Rich.
Yes.
Okay, that's.
I will say, I'm still angling for a Rude Nexus, like the right Rude Nexus page.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a lot of Rude, but no Nexus. So.
Bill, what did Bill mention? From inking Rude on Jimmy Olsen, I realized in doing research that Colletta was great at textures.
And that's why Warlord worked for him, because it's so organic and it's like fur and metal and flesh. It's a very sensual kind of comic where Vinny can like do his stuff. Oh, somebody was asking earlier about who I thought interesting up and comers were, and this is a page from a book called Hedra by Jesse Lonergan.
Uh-huh.
And Jesse's one of the great young, like, formalist experimenters in comics right now. And this page is a really great example of that, because this is not how I would tell this story, but the forms that Jesse uses are as essential to the story as the content of the story. So if you back out again, you'll see all these crazy, like, you see the path of that little globe as it descends down the page, but it's not perfect. It's broken. And because that path is broken, that implies a time shift in between those little arcs. And they all descend down to these characters who are observing that globe, but they're all isolated into their own little blocks. So you highlight each one of those, and you also accentuate their isolation, which is like the kind of thinking that really intrigues me. So like Jesse, I think, is a direct descendant of a storyteller like Bernie Krigstein, in that he's really thinking about the layout of the page in a really formal way that a lot of other creators aren't. So Jesse's definitely one of those like young, exciting creators. And Dave Chisholm's another, Allison Sampson. You know, there's just so many really great young creators that that are pushing things. And like now you can do that. Like I don't know what comics would have done with Jesse in 1979. Like where would Jesse go? Like maybe underground books?
He'd have to. I mean, he wouldn't fit any house style. You know, he's not Al Milgrom, Ed Hannigan,
like what would happen to
anybody. He doesn't fit in at all.
Right. I don't know what happened to Matt Lesniewski back then, but now Matt Lesniewski can get gigs, and so can Jesse Lonergan. Jesse's doing mainstream gigs, which is all really exciting to me. So these young people, when we were talking about it earlier, there's such a breadth of new styles that are available to art collectors. And like I said, I bought this page when I think it was under $300, you know, and it's a really, it's a really amazing.
Pick up his stuff at the Artist Bullpen. I think it's the artistbullpen.com. That's where he's repped. I bought a Ninja Turtle page,
right,
from a 6-page short story that he did. It's just fantastic. Not as interesting as this one, but similarly just breaking down.
This one's pure Jesse. Like he wrote this story too, so he doesn't have to conform to any sort of story logic but his own. And it makes it, you know, a really exciting formal experiment.
Nice pickup. And I actually have a piece commissioned a Cyclops artwork by listeners too. So I'm very happy to have a piece by him as well.
I commissioned a Solomon Grundy from him, and then I got a page from the Freak. So
cool.
But he was still a baby. His style is not where it is now yet on the Freak, for people that are Lesniewski fans. So this is a Starlin and Milgram page from Strange Tales / Adam Warlock. And this is from the famous Send in the Clowns issue, where Adam Warlock is put in like this little sensory deprivation helmet that makes him like go on a basically a trip for the whole issue. But it's I put this in because it not only influenced me as an artist, but it influenced me as a writer. When I read this in high school, it really blew my mind that comics could be about these sort of topics and not just about saving the day or, you know, plugging up a volcano with a boulder, you know. It was deeper stuff, and it was like, you know, especially deep to a high schooler. But
no one's fighting a giant ape here or anything like that.
Yeah, but it was cool. It was cool to explore these sort of metaphysical questions in a comic book and combine them with the dude who had gold wristbands, which is always cool. But yeah, it's a book that meant a lot to me as a creator, and I got to meet Jim too, and he was sweet enough.
Yeah, I mean, I like Starlin's work from this period. I mean, it kind of varies after.
Yeah, again, he's still figuring it out. You know, he does. Again, nothing is wrote yet. He's still finding his way, which is always exciting.
Congrats on having this one in your collection. That's very cool.
Toth.
Toth at last. Here we are. Look at that.
So I have a ton of Toth, and I thought about it a long time, and I think this is my favorite because it has this really unique page layout. It has really impeccable lettering by Toth and really strong silhouettes, and then also just this like killer likeness of Errol Flynn in the last panel, because Alex was a big Errol Flynn guy. And it's just neat to see it all come together like this. And this is sort of my prime era of Toth, like 70s to early 80s is my favorite era of Toth, because he's really reducing things down to just their essentials. and using like silhouette and high contrast to tell more and more of the story, and really presaging a lot of creators like like Miller on Sin City or Somni on his later work. It's really cool to see him like staking out that territory and producing really cool stuff. And also you get to see Alex deploying a lot of different techniques that maybe he doesn't always kind of use, like the Kanju crayon in the last panel. That tone is Kanju crayon. And then also I know he inked it with, at least part of it, with a marker. And for the life of me, we can't figure out what kind of marker, because it's not dying. It's not fading in any way. This page, this page is close to 50 years old. And there's no, like, the markers are all still have their integrity. So we're wondering if he was not using like high-end ad agency markers that he was filling with his own blend of ink, such that they wouldn't fade over time, because they still have high integrity. Because I do have some Toth that are inked with like a more like an open market magic marker, and they are kind of wobbly in places. But this one's still rock solid.
Yeah, no, this is a fantastic page as a title page. My goodness. And the hand lettering.
I just love that whole Red Circle Sorcery era. Every issue, if you have never read Red Circle Sorcery, because it hasn't been reprinted properly, but every issue has either Toth or Gray Morrow or Frank Thorne or some other great kind of unsung 70s artist in it. So they're expensive, but if you can find them, anytime you see a Red Circle Sorcery, you can pick it up and you will not be disappointed. Pat Boyette's in them a lot too. Mm-hmm. Here's another Alan Moore page, and it's a real gut punch of a page, because it's it presages. It's not presages. It's the preceding page. The preceding issues are the issues where Swamp Thing goes to hell to retrieve Abby's soul, and so you get to see Alan Moore's version of hell, and you get to see Dead Man and all this other cool stuff that's in hell. And just the captions themselves on this are really like, if you go back up to the top of the page, you'll see the captions are a real killer. It's about him learning that the love of his life is dead, and it's inked by Toddleman, but it is penciled by Rick Veitch, so it's not a Bissett Toddleman gig, because Bissett was working on the issues after this, because they're super involved, and I have a page from those too. But yeah, this was a really cool issue. And the one that follows this is the awesome Sean McManus Walt Kelly tribute Pog, which was a tribute to Pogo. So yeah, Alan Moore is really cooking with gas, and he signed this page as well. So, and again, you pay an Alan Moore premium for a page like this, even though the figures are very tiny. Toddleman's technique is so amazing in this. He does so much with textures that he's the real star. Rick is incredible also, but I think Toddleman's the real star of this page.
You've had this one for a while?
Yeah, I've had it for a while, and I don't think I spent an awful lot on it. I just recently bought my Bissett Toddleman Swamp Thing page, and I did pay a lot for that, because those are getting out of hand. Those are getting into the out of reach zone. So this is a Tony Salmon's page from Captain America, Red, White, and Blue, and it's highlighting Red Skull, and it's everything I love about Tony. I will never figure out what's going on in that dude's brain. He makes choices that are just so spur of the moment, but still very like high fidelity drawings. So he's this weird combination of somebody that's making strange, like those strange kind of Eddie Campbell nonsensical marks, but they're falling into a framework that's really perfect, a perfect drawing. And he is a unicorn. I will never figure out Tony Salmons, but I admire him a great deal. So, and his stuff is still sort of affordable. So mostly because, like Marcus says here in the chat, he doesn't do enough work. He doesn't work a lot. So he never really got to that sort of superstar level. Also, his stuff is hard to swallow for a lot of people. But for artists, I think you'll find almost every artist admires Tony Salmons.
Yeah, you have 17 pieces on caps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me guess. Some of his art is in that stack that you have yet to scan.
Maybe
not.
Maybe. All I know is this page is super oversized. Another Tony thing. You never know. Like sometimes the page is going to come in on what's essentially a piece of typing paper, and sometimes it's going to come in on a huge illustration board, as this piece is.
Likes Tony's Sable.
Yeah. His Dakota North is probably the first time people saw him. He did Dakota North for Marvel. And at the time he was a little more mainstream. He didn't go totally nuts like he has on these. But I love it when he goes nuts. And this is the first Kirby I ever bought. Kirby and Chick Stone from the Inhuman storyline in Amazing Adventures. And it's nothing like super special, but to me it was magic to see those coffee stains on the side and know that this was on Kirby's drawing board, just to see all that stuff made it feel real to me. And I bought it from the CBG for $100 back in the day.
Keep them coming, Phil.
And this is back when
keep reminding us. I want to hear it. But I love Kirby 6-panel layouts.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I could look at this all day. I think it's so hard to tell a story in 6 evenly sized
and it's
panels
perfect.
like this.
I mean, you know exactly what's happening, and the main one looks cool, and it's just it's not. I don't mean it's not a bad page in any way. It's just like it's the first one I got, and it's the first one I could afford, and I just thought it's really.
And it was $100.
It was $100
through the CBG.
In the CBG, yeah. And it's got that trademark Chick Stone coloring book line around everything. But it's still.
Did you overnight your copy of the CBG to you, or did you get it in regular?
I got it in the mail like a normal person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that the savvy art collectors overnight.
I know. I wasn't savvy.
Oh man. Well, then I guess you should be thankful that it was still available by the time you were able to call in and send a check.
Yeah. I don't think we'll get to it, but the very first piece of art I ever bought, I bought from the CBG, sight unseen. It was just described in an ad, and I bought it for $35.
Wow.
This is something I had to buy because I'd never seen anything like it, and it's just a Kirby layout for a T-shirt design from the 60s. And it's so rare to see Kirby lay something out and not finish it. That I had to get this and I had to see it. But you can see all the Kirby. I mean, the Kirby pose is there. Like the legs are so impossibly far apart. Yeah, CJ, you're right. John Romita Sr. did finish this for the T-shirt design. But the way he handles figures is so intuitive. Like you can feel Daredevil adjusting his weight on that tightrope by the way he's throwing his arm back, and the way he's gripping the billy club at the end of the billy club implies that he's getting ready to strike with it, and the way his right hand is open slightly gives the idea that he's also looking for balance with that right hand. Just everything he does, I don't know if it's intuitive or if it's studied. I know he did do a lot of photo ref, but the figures that existed in his mind, the lexicon of the human figure that exists in his mind is so far above everything else. He's almost like, like the first guy to do a power chord in a rock and roll record. And then everyone else has got to do power chords after that because you can't go back. you know, and this is a good example of that, you know.
You're right. I mean, I can't say that I've seen too many roughs that are this loose and just almost really just started, right? A few minutes of work, and he puts that much grace into this piece.
Yeah, and I think if you tried to buy the T-shirt nowadays, if you could find one that exists, it would probably cost more than I paid for this.
More than likely. What did Phil say? I love when Kirby's DD showed up in FF and influence very well. Okay, yeah, that's cool. Let's see. I do want to see as much as we can in here tonight. So let's see here. We got what?
Mazzucchelli page from Born Again.
Right? Yep.
No Daredevil, but Captain America, and superb storytelling done almost completely with sound effects.
To you as well, bought from David.
Yep. I bought it from his dealer, but this is back when they were still attainable, and he was personalizing them, so it was kind of neat to get it like that. And my really good friend Andy Parks, who inked me forever, and now is a big fancy writer. He can no longer ink people. He owns another page from this issue of the famous page of Captain America holding the flag and saying, "I'm loyal to nothing but the dream." Andy owns that page, and I own this page. And I just love it, again, for the storytelling going on, especially in that bottom tier. But it not only is it Mazzucchelli at the, sort of the dawn of his real mastery, but also Frank at the peak of his writing powers too. So it's just, can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
And what I learned from it, from looking at it as an artist, is how immediate Mazzucchelli was with his rendering. Like nothing is belabored. Everything's really laid down really quickly. And if you get, I don't know if it's the artist edition or the very first hardcover Marvel did of this Daredevil run, like the first omnibus of it, they print a lot of Maz's pencils in it, and they are cursory. They are like, they're so barely there that he is trusting himself to do so much drawing in the inking stage. And that's somebody who really trusts their draftsmanship. And I do not trust my draftsmanship, so I work everything out like an idiot over and over. I draw everything 6 times. That's what it takes to even get, like, as pathetic as I am, it takes that much work just to get that good. But Maz was like, and also he was a kid, he was in his 20s tossing this stuff off. But it's perfect. And Frank was a kid too, for that matter. He's in his 30s when he was writing it.
Well, these pages are coveted and have gone up in value quite a bit in the last 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, you'll know I'm retiring if you ever see this on the market.
Oh man, so Bruce Timm.
Yeah, so Bruce Timm Batman stuff technically belongs to Warner Brothers, unless I worked on the show for a little while. I did storyboards for a little while, and my storyboards belong to Warner Brothers. But this was a cover rough he did for an animation industry magazine, and I own both of them. I just put this one up because I thought it was really cool, and it's very rare to get like a cool Batman by Bruce that isn't a commission. And it's just he's a huge influence on me, and I sat beside him at a show and watched him just bust these commissions out with a Sharpie, of course, in like seconds, and the sound of the Sharpie flying over the page will haunt my dream. It's just like squeak, 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 and then a perfect drawing would come out at the bottom. And I was sitting, I don't know, like what, like a sadistic con organizer put me between Steve Rude and Bruce Timm, but I had to watch these guys drawing, and I'm over here like just dying, trying to draw my BS while these two guys were knocking out masterpieces. But I don't have it in my calf gallery because I don't think Bruce would appreciate it. But he started a sketch and he didn't like it. and he threw it on the ground. And I was like, and I kept it, and it's a Flash, and like it's a drawing of the Flash, and he looks a little bit. There's a little bit awkwardness to his pose, which was why Bruce abandoned it. But I grabbed it because like I was like, I'm going to learn something from this, you know. And I uncrinkled it and took it home, and I just saw how quickly, like how much he obeys the spirit of his very first gesture that he lays down. So if the very first gesture he lays down is sound, everything's going to grow from that. And as an artist myself, I try to comport to that. Like if the gesture is authentic, the rest of the drawing that's going to flow out of it will be legit. And that sometimes that means you have to do the gesture over and over again, or you have to warm up and do different gestures till you find the right one. But the gesture is really important, and that's something Bruce taught me. And like I said, I did work on the show, the Batman show and the Superman show, for like a hot minute, and learned so much just from the style guides and the model sheets that he created for those.
That's awesome. Did he know that you walked away with the Flash drawing?
No, so nobody tell him.
Oh, he doesn't watch it. I'm sure.
Good.
But that's great. Why not, right? I mean, I you know what? There's not one collector in the chat right now that wouldn't have done the exact same thing.
Yeah, I didn't steal it from. I waited for him to leave, and it was still on the floor, and I took it then. So there was nothing underhanded up.
All right, if you would have thrown it in the trash, that was it.
Yeah,
but, yeah. You leave it on the floor in the booth. It's fair game.
This is another Toth page, but inked by Dick Giordano.
Oh,
and
cool.
It's really interesting to see how ballsy Dick is in inking this page, especially if you look at the contours around the figures. He's so gutsy. He does stuff that I don't think Toth would do, because Dick is just so feeling his oats on this. He's flying across the page. He's staying true to the cartooniness of Toth, but he's adding dimension to the figures, especially like in the hair and the faces. They have a depth that I don't think even Alex would find. Especially like you see in the very last panel, the leather jacket of the villain. It's got that Toth Kniff kind of wet brush folds in the leather. But behind it, you can see the sort of almost hatched cast shadow that I'm not sure Toth would do. But Dick is so attuned to texture that he finds room for that sort of thing. And, you know, and indicating the fact that the wall is stone with those little pit marks, or dragging his whiteout or razor across that windshield to create the reflection. That's all stuff that Dick is bringing all his like tricks of the trade to this page. And in a way, it's really, I know Toth would rather ink it himself, but I'm so excited that Dick inked it and brought a different dimension to it. And it's just like watching two guys at the top of their game.
So sometimes even when the page doesn't scream exactly what you would expect from the penciler, you still want it because it's representative of Giordano's influence over Toth.
Yeah, I bought it as much for Giordano as I did for Toth. And this
a little more modern, right?
Yeah, this is Jorge Zaffino, and it's a page from Winterworld. And Jorge was a big influence on me because, like Pat Boyette, he's not afraid to be ugly. Again, his drawing is beautiful, and it's high fidelity, but what he's depicting is often very ugly, especially his violent stuff. So his violence looks like it hurts. And Winterworld is a beautiful example of it. It's also amazing to get one of his originals. The reason I highlighted this in what I sent you is because the paper is just tissue thin, but he still attacks it. He attacks it like in a way like a modern artist, Daniel Warren Johnson attacks his pages. Of classic giants, Joe Kubert does that, but Zaffino really goes at this page with whiteout and razor blades, to really get the look he wants. And nothing is belabored, and everything is like really confident. You can see a lot of Goran Parlov in his work now. Really came out of this Zafino, and for about 2 years, every submission I sent to Marvel and DC had somebody grimacing like a Jorge Zafino character. That sort of rictus mouth. Yeah. So it's, I just love him. He's like somebody married Alex Raymond with, I don't know who, somebody way more brutal. Like it's like a really it's like the Bizarro Alex Raymond. Like, because he can draw, like you can see it like in the fourth panel, that 3/4 rear profile of that guy in the foreground is like so high fidelity, so so again, like classic strip artist, especially in the neck and in the back of the head. But then his rendering is so Alberto Breccia, like South American kind of real quick and brutal. And it's beautiful.
It
yeah,
is.
he's a big influence on me. Of course, I can't draw that cat, but
Peter Rowe is going to forever remember Bizarro. And Stinger wanted to know what he did with razor blades on this.
So if you go up to, you know what, I should have scanned the back of it. Here I am trying to move it with my on the guy, like on the second panel. What you think is whiteout. Oh yeah, and in the third panel too. A lot of what you think is whiteout or white spaces are actually him tearing out ink with the dull edge of a razor blade. You'll see that a lot in Jack Davis's technique as well. Jack Davis, instead of whiteout, will use a dull razor blade, and he'll do rain effects that way as well.
Romita Sr. did that a lot too.
Yeah. Kubrick. Oh yeah, you'll see it in the fur on that guy's jacket in that second panel. You see where that fold breaks, right above the balloon. Yeah, you almost touch it with your little cursor to the screen left.
Okay, over here, like
here. That guy's jacket. See that break? That's razor.
Yeah.
He just dragged it across.
Interesting.
And the paper itself is like so thin and flimsy that you have to really be gutsy to do that. And he was like a lot of machismo in his drawing, And his son is an excellent artist as well.
It's a very cool page. And 11 by 17 or large?
Yeah, normal size.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is a Kevin O'Neill page from Nemesis the Warlock, and it's a scene of Torquemada's hellish dungeon where he keeps all the aliens from this world, because aliens are second-class citizens in Nemesis the Warlock storyline. And one of the Inquisitors gets thrown to the aliens and consumed by the aliens. But you can see Kev's style. The figures are so obscene without being sexual. Like they're vaguely sexual, but in a way that's really discomforting. and it's why to this day he's the only person to ever have his style banned by the Comics Code Authority. He was not allowed to work in mainstream comics and still get the Comics Code stamp. So when DC did a few mainstream DC books with him, they had to take the stamp off. And his famous Green Lantern stories they did with Alan Moore as well. But he's just such a superb artist and like an unbounded imagination, and represents everything that's great about that sort of 2000 AD British storytelling. Like everything's just over the top, but still really high fidelity drawing. And I got to meet him, and at the time I told him he didn't sell a lot of his work when he was alive. And I told him I own this page, and the first thing he said to me was, "How?" So, but I still own it. I don't think I'll ever be able to swing a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen page, but to me, Nemesis the Warlock was sort of his peak to me. And
those Nemesis ads that were in 2000 AD, you didn't really convey what the story was going to be about.
Yeah,
they were so interesting. They made you end up picking up Nemesis just to find out what they were about, because they were always like either the back cover or the back interior. And
it was just so weird. Like, this could not exist in American comics.
No, not at all.
Like, just a beautiful page. And of course, it's the majority of 2000 AD pages are in black and white, so it was very cool to see him use tone so effectively.
Good pick. I mean, again, O'Neill's somebody who we don't get to talk about too often on the channel. I mean, again, primarily because a lot of people aren't picking up the artwork, right? There's just not a ton of it out there. This is a Dave Stevens piece.
Yeah, this is a Dave Stevens layout from Space Vixens, a cover for Space Vixen, and it's very small, and it's mostly in pencil, and you can barely tell it, but there's a few places where he goes over the pencil with ballpoint to just sort of like solidify the contour. And it is notable to me for a couple of reasons, because it's Dave Stevens and it's Pretty Girls, but also because I bought it from one of the models for this piece. Leah Hernandez, who's an accomplished cartoonist in her own right. And she'll have to forgive me for not remembering her married name now, but most of my life her name was Leah Hernandez, and she's a really good cartoonist, and she's one of these models, and I don't know who, but she posed for this for Dave, and so it's a little piece of history that came with this. But it's cool to see the finished cover and see the subtle changes he made, because Dave was a reviser. I mean, he revised things over. It's why he didn't. I mean, his work had great impact, despite the fact they didn't produce a lot of pages. And part of the reason for that is he would rework things over and over and over again until they were the way he wanted them. And what's cool, I feel like what's cool about this one is the character in the cockpit feels a little Hernandez brother-ish. She looks like she came out of Love and Rockets in a way.
Yeah, that's true. So how did that, I mean, you knew her, so that's how the opportunity to...
Yeah, I knew her as we were both professionals at the same time. So, and she was moving, I think. I think she was moving and clearing stuff out, and she was willing to let this go. So,
congrats.
I put this one in because it's a funny story.
Okay.
This was at one of those Chicago cons when they still had live art, a lot of live art auctions. And this is a Scott Hampton layout from Legends of the Dark Knight, I want to say, called Night Cries. And it's like him working out the cover. It's on a piece of, it's like a little piece of tracing paper. But I was a big fan of the Hamptons brothers' work. And I put a bid on this. But I've been in the auction so long, I really had to go to the bathroom. So I put an initial bid on it, and I told my friends, I'm like, hey, look, bid on this up to $40 while I'm gone. Because back then, I mean, it's just a layout, and that was a reasonable price for that sort of thing at the time. So I entered the bathroom, and I came back in, and I heard the auctioneer saying, 30, going once, going twice, and I yelled 40. It was my friends bid for me. They were bidding for me, and I outbid myself. So
they were trying to signal you, and
but I heard 30 going twice, and I yelled. So I cost myself $10.
Wow, it went to a good cause.
Yes.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah.
And here's
another Toth, right?
Yeah, this is Toth inked by Terry Austin.
Oh wow!
Which is a neat combo. He's a little more true to Dick's mark making, except in the woman's faces, which he can't help but try to make a little bit prettier, I think. but here's a place where you can see that marker starting to degrade. But I think it might be Terry's fault and not Alex's. Just the markers in the background.
Right.
See them starting to fall apart. But it's interesting to see Toth tells so much of this story with just textures and sound effects, and not so much with figures, even though the figures are all like impeccable. It's really cool to see him tackle a straight superhero thing, which is pretty rare. There's a famous World's Finest job he did around this time that Terry inked as well. But outside of that Batman Death Flies the Haunted Skies and this and that World's Finest, he doesn't do a lot of superhero work. So it was cool to see him tackle it. And I think the results are really satisfying.
Yeah, definitely. I love the sound effects.
Yeah. That's pure Toth. That's Toth lettering. The actual lettering in the balloons isn't, but I'm sure he spotted the balloons.
Mm-hmm. It's very, very nice.
And this is one I bought to learn from. This is a Romita Jr. Page from Amalgam from Thorion, and it's his version of Darkseid with the Loki Desaad combo. Because for people that don't remember, this is a combination of Asgard and New Genesis. So it's the Fourth World and Thor thrown together. But somehow Darkseid remains pretty much the same. But it's really cool to see how much he doesn't fuss over certain things and knows when to fuss. So like if you look at like the textures on Darkseid's face, he really gets into it, and he really picks up on all the descriptive textures that are there. But then like the background technology, he doesn't fuss with. He knows that's background. Like why overwork that? And this was never inked. This came out just penciled. So it was at the time Marvel thought they could, with a penciler like John, you can get away with that because like everything's there, like the blacks are all there. They just darkened this and colored it, and it looked good. For Peter, I don't have any Toth War pages. He asked if I had any Toth War pages. I wish I did. I wish I had some stuff from Blazing Combat. And I really wish I had what I consider one of the best comic book stories of all time, which is Saberjet.
Not heard of that.
Yeah, he did two famous jet stories, Saberjet and Thunderjet. And Saberjet is so interesting to me because there's points in that story where it becomes almost abstract art. Like like he's describing figures with just an arc and describing the sky with just a few puffs of clouds, and it gets so deep into that story, like the graphic presentation of like flight and gravity, that it starts to become like capital A art, and it starts to become modern art, and it's really I love that story. If a holy grail for me would to get a page from Saberjet.
I'm gonna have to look it up. I've never. Who is the publisher?
It was an EC book from one of the war books. Yep.
Okay. Interesting.
And it's worth finding Thunderjet too, which is a little more of a traditional war story, but they're both written by Kurtzman and sort of thumbnailed by Kurtzman. So you get that 1-2 punch of great storytelling between Kurtzman and Toth.
Well, Peter hopes to get one. Peter collects a lot of war-related art. So
yeah, I have a lot of war, mostly Kubert and Heath, and Jack Davis.
Nice.
This is an unused Swamp Thing cover. My Swamp Thing love goes beyond Bernie Wrightson, and it goes to the guy who immediately followed Bernie Wrightson, Nestor Redondo, who, had he not followed Bernie Wrightson, would probably be remembered as the great Swamp Thing artist, because he was born to draw this comic. And I can't remember what issue this is from because this is unpublished. Largely because the unfortunate tangent between the guy's crotch and the devil's wing.
Yeah.
And also everybody's naked except the preacher. Everybody naked. But it's gorgeous, and it is everything that's special about Nestor Redondo. Like, in some ways, he could do things that Bernie couldn't. Like the way he treats light and some textures is a lot more delicate than even Bernie would do. But he comes from that Philippine tradition of almost kind of florid over rendering of things, and that kind of overpowers things from time to time. But I will say, I feel like his run on Swamp Thing deserves to be remembered next to Bernie's because it was so beautiful, and I have a lot of pages from that run.
This is cool. Yeah, I mean that's I understand why it was unpublished.
Yes.
So. We got a couple more pieces here. Well, I think just 3 more, but they're
yeah. So this I just included because when I was talking about my love for Doom Patrol, this is a Bruno Premiani page from Doom Patrol, kind of later in the run, but it's got all my favorite characters on it. It's the bad guys, the cornerly named Animal Vegetable Mineral Man, but it's got classic Cliff Steele getting his Robot Man feet welded to the floor. It's got Beast Boy, it's got Rita. It's just it's good classic Doom Patrol, and I love every iteration of the Doom Patrol. I challenge you to show me one I don't love. And it's one of the big tragedies of my career that I've never gotten to draw the Doom Patrol.
How are you going to correct that?
I don't know. I got really close once, which is a sad story. When Rachel Pollack was writing it and Ted McKeever was drawing it, Ted didn't think he could keep the monthly pace. So I was hired to be the regular fill-in guy for probably 2 to 3 issues a year. But our editor, Lou Stathis, sadly passed away. And that was enough to kill the momentum of the book, and DC sort of pulled the plug on it in general. So no more Doom Patrol.
Yeah.
So it died before I could draw it. In that Vertigo run anyway.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's still time. Oh.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah, and this is a Byrne and Austin X-Men page, which this book meant so much to me when I was a kid, a teenager. And every page felt momentous on this run. And this is the page where the Beast returns to the X-Mansion, and Cyclops learns that Jean Grey did not die in Magneto's lair. And so, but it's cool to see everybody in the danger room in that top panel. No Wolverine, but Beast is cool, and Colossus is my favorite X-Men, and he just looks so cool and really amazing.
Yeah,
and really great storytelling. Like Byrne always gets to the emotion of every scene, and Terry's inks are just so luscious, and Orzechowski's lettering is really stands out too. Like everybody was firing on all cylinders on this book, and it made it must read at the time it was coming out.
You're not going to get any disagreement from me.
Yeah, and I like Fat Visor Cyclops. So
this is peak. Okay, I got to ask. I mean, best leader for the X-Men, Phil. Who?
That's tough for me. I don't know if I'm a big enough nerd to answer that.
All right, that's okay. You don't have to. That's fine.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for me to say anything but Cyclops, because for the majority of the time I was really an X-Men devotee.
That's all you need to say.
It was all Cyclops.
Yeah, I'm a.
You're basically asking
Cyclops all the way.
When you're asking somebody who their favorite Doctor Who is, you're basically asking like, who was Doctor Who when you were 12? You know?
Yeah, you're right. I get it. Anybody, totally. But no, this is awesome, and this is actually the last page. I thought there was one after this one. This was
Oh
the
yeah,
last
no,
page.
this is the most I ever spent on a page. And it's sort of reason. Oh, Greg, you shouldn't have said that. I love that book. He's talking about the Nestor Redondo Bible book. Has a beautiful Kubrick cover of Moses hand holding the tablets of the Ten Commandments, but the inside is just Nestor doing really, really like old master level drawings of scenes from the Bible. It's beautiful. But getting back to this X-Men, it's sort of set the upper limit of what I think I will ever pay for a page. And I think I spent $6,000 on it. And I don't see myself ever going over that and staying married. So maybe
$6,000. I mean, what are we talking, like 2008, 2009?
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Yeah.
So maybe if I ever want a really big ticket item like a Kirby Senate FF, I'll have to trade away something really nice.
But not this one, because it's your only burn X-Men page.
Jimmy's asking if I ever trim down my collection by selling pieces and taking trips, and my wife brings that up every week. And it hasn't happened
exactly. If we
yet.
sold this, we could take a trip around the world probably 3 times and still have money left for cab fare.
Right. So I can see it. I can see it in my future. Let me put it that way, Jimmy. I can see it in my future. It's coming.
All right. And okay. Well, everybody gets on me. Would Kirby be a top 5 X-Men artist for you in your era of reading X-Men? Kirby.
Yeah, for me, he would. He would be for me. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I mean, he created them, so it's hard to beat that. But then you make me start thinking, and I'm running out of. I got a top 5 before 1980. You know.
See, that was my problem too. I had Kirby originally at 7, and then I moved him up to 6. And I'm hedging now for the same reason you just did. He he started the book. Right,
you got to put Neil in there. You got to put Paul Smith in there. You got to put Cockrum in there.
Exactly.
Neil
Adams. I mean, there's.
It gets out of hand. I will kick Steranko out because he just didn't do enough for me to count him. And the pages are a little weird. The splash pages are fabulous, but he wasn't pure Steranko yet. So yeah, it's tough. And there's so many people now. Jim Lee. I mean. Joe Mad, it's hard. I do like the Roth X-Men. I would like to get it.
Well, that's why he's I have a couple Werner Roth pages. I originally had Werner Roth at 6 because I said anybody who worked on the book that long to keep it going deserved recognition. And okay.
I tell you what I really love is the Juggernaut story that Kirby lays out and Toth finishes. It's really cool. The first Juggernaut story. But yeah, there's all sorts of really. It's like if a character lasts long enough, like Daredevil's it's really tough to do this with Daredevil, to pick 5 of the best Daredevil artists because he's had so many fantastic runs. People just bring their A game when they get on Daredevil. But yeah, you can play this. This is how you know what kind of a nerd I was in high school. Instead of like going out with girls, my friends and I would get together and talk about who we would put on which books if we were in charge of Marvel and DC. We'd be like, oh, Michael Golden belongs on the X-Men, and we need to move,
Those are far more important questions.
We need to move McDonald
going out on dates.
Yeah, we were doing that.
Girls will always be there, but these comic debates will not. So
yeah, my friends really need to know who I would put on Micronauts.
Yeah, exactly. A question for you. I saw Rob T said, how much of your work do you keep with the huge collection? I can't imagine there's much room, I guess, to keep your own work laying around.
So I have a little box. Well, not little. I mean, it's like, I don't know. It's probably 10 inches tall. And I keep the stuff I'm going to leave to my kids there. And I try to keep 1 page from every big assignment. So something that, or something that I know is going to meet, like if I do a cover to a first issue, like my first Ant-Man covers in there, a couple Green Arrow pages, just things that I know I'm going to want to remember, I'll throw in there. So I don't know. I'd probably say I have about 30 of my pages that I'm keeping to never sell. Yeah. But everything else is fair game because I love, you'll see this if you come to the Original Art Expo. I like to interact with people. I'd rather sell my artwork face to face to interact with people because sometimes they'll narrow it down to 2 and then ask me like, which one of these pages should I get? And I'll give them my honest opinion about what I think is special about each page. And to me, that sort of interaction is almost worth more than the money changing hands. Because I'm talking to another fan and maybe I'm educating them a little bit about artwork in general, about the aesthetic of comic books or the theory behind what I choose to do. To me, that's worth more than, that's worth more than like letting an art dealer handle it. Right. It will be less hassle. But to me, even though I'm hauling the portfolio, on an airplane and to a con, it's worth it for me to interact. And also, I like for people to look at it, even if they're not going to buy it. I like browsers. Like it's like if it's a kid that didn't know anything about how comics were made, just seeing them like their eyes light up when they see, oh, this is how they do it. They do it bigger than the comic. All that stuff to me is really exciting. So I'll probably never let go of that. I'll always sell my own pages by hand.
I love hearing that. I really do. I mean, that's, you're really getting the full amount of joy you can out of it, from the creative side and the creation of the pages to the moment you let them go. I love that. I love.
Oh, see, there's Rob T. He's testifying to that. I helped him pick out a page.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, congrats, Rob. No, again, I love that. I love hearing that. That's really awesome. Well, when we get done with the show, don't like sign off right away. Sure. Things I want to mention to you, but yeah, this was fun, Phil. I mean, and I should remind everybody. I haven't put the link in the show description for your pre-OAX stuff, but I will put it in there so anybody stumbling on this, watching it on the rewind, please check out the description for the show. There's going to be a link in there to order pre-OAX commissions from Phil if you'd like. And again, just like Casper says, go for another hour.
I know.
Thank you for that, Casper. Casper's going to be up for another hour. That's why he's telling us to keep going. But no. But
I will mention it on my socials too. I will talk about the pre list for OAX and I'd be happy to take commissions at the show too, usually, unless I get overwhelmed. So, and Marcus, my favorite burn page was actually the Power Man page, because of what it meant to me as a kid. Even though I loved X-Men, the Power Man page was a special time in my life. So, thanks, Jim. Good to see you.
When you have time, get the rest of that stack of artwork scanned.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what's the most. Oh, there's a Burn Doom Patrol page in there, and there's some manga pages that I'm just starting to pick up manga pages that are, because a lot of those originals don't come here.
Move those to the top to scan, because there's definitely not enough manga artwork on CAF.
So I think my to be scanned pile is about the size of most people's actual collections.
You're killing us all, Phil.
It's out of control. But,
oh man, well, thank you for doing this. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
We're really looking forward to it. It is 6 months away. It's at midnight. It's literally midnight right now, so we can literally say 6 months from now we will all be hanging out in Orlando. This was great, Phil. So again, this I'm glad we finally got to do this. You're somebody who we could have on the channel to talk about art anytime. I mean, your knowledge and you're more eloquent than I am talking about what makes this special.
I'm sure people are sick of me by now, but I'll come back anytime you want me.
All right. Thank you. Everybody, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. This was very enriching and rewarding, and we got to see a lot of great artwork and understand why it was important for Phil to add these pieces to his collection. And again, Phil, honestly, not enough artists utilize CAF, to either show off the pieces they own or pieces that they want to maybe attract a buyer from. We're always trying to get the word out that CAF is a great resource. It's not just solely for art collectors. We wish more artists engaged, and the fact that you've been a member for over 16 years, really makes me happy, because you were like one of the early artists that just thought it was a worthwhile place to
I don't get it. Like, it's the whole I thought the whole point of like collecting art was to like flex on people. So
and that is a very
everybody here doing this
key component to collecting original art. Absolutely. You want to be that guy to be the first owner on that piece and to be able to show it off and be the envy of your peers. And no, totally. Oh man. Yeah, you're one of us. When we come up with a club t-shirt, you are going to get one in the mail.
I'll be there.
So I promise you that. All right. Well, we're going to sign off and for the evening, but thanks again, everybody. 3 hours, and it was a wonderful conversation for every minute of it. So have a wonderful night, and we'll see you again soon.